Hey guys, how you doing today? Got a beautiful picture here. Beautiful picture here from, this is in Barrie, Ontario, right? All of the rain we've been having has created a beautiful mushroom season. One of my good friends, who actually also happens to be a former partner of mine, really loves mushrooms and mushroom hunting, and so whenever I see this kind of stuff, it reminds me of great times and good hikes and camping and all of this. I feel like one of the things that I've really missed over this pandemic, because of the upheaval that went in on my own life and because of the pandemic itself, is that I haven't been able to get out into the natural world and go camping really to any significant degree whatsoever. And boy, do I miss it. You know, it's one of those things you don't really miss it till it's gone, you know? And now I'm sitting here and I'm just like, oh boy, like I haven't been camping in forever. And I really wish that I could go up. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well, Lonnie. Thank you so much. There is, of course, the tiny part of me that's a bit like, yeah, happy Colonial Day. Happy us coming in and fucking everything up day. But I take your statement in the spirit of which it was meant, which is camaraderie, right? And I've been so. It's funny because I call myself the Canadian commie, but I don't really like using the word comrade, and I don't really know why. And I think just recently I had it kind of explained to me why. Or I had an epiphany, I guess, and it's because here in North America, we think that comrade means soldier, whereas in Russia, where, you know, it was used, people say comrade and it means friend. That's more accurately what the intention is, right? And so, in the end, I end up falling for the Western propaganda, right? Just like the rest of us. And so I think I'm going to start using comrade a little bit more aggressively. Is that the word? But like using it a little bit more readily, because I now understand that what it means, and what it means is friend or buddy, right? As opposed to this more formal soldier-based kind of thing, which is what I'd always just and just sort of instinctually come to believe because of the propaganda that I had jammed in my face. So we're all growing and everything's changing and all of that kind of stuff. It's all good times and all good fun. Well, Lonnie, I'm going to hit you with a song I've been working on. And I've been steadily falling in love with this song. It's almost every single day, like right when I get up, I just feel like I got to grab my guitar and play this tune. And there's something really lovely about it, I think. And I think perhaps it has something to do with the fact that we're going into a season of holidays, right? We've got our Thanksgiving, and soon it'll be Halloween, and then there's American Thanksgiving, and then we've got Christmas coming up here. As much as I don't like to talk too much about Christmas as a holiday, because I never actually really thought of it as a holiday, but for you, Lonnie, because you're in the chat, I think I'll go ahead and play this tune. It's called "I Wish My Ma Was Here." These times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt, and nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry, I wish my ma was here. A soldier on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow old. And as the tears stream down his face, at once his mind is clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries, I wish my ma was here. And when it came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cry, she'd hold me, tell me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march out to the streets, as all the righteous do, we lift our voices to the sky. They cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, with victory we'll cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yeah, we'll make the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Oh, well, thank you, Lonnie. Beautiful melody as usual. Oh, that's a beautiful thing to say. Thank you so much, Lonnie. And hey, Mystic, how you doing, bud? How you doing? I got some questions on socialism, communism. I hope I've got some answers for you, bud. I hope so. And if I don't, maybe we can do some research together and find some things out. I'd love to talk about that. I really like this piece. I like the piece that it's a challenging piece for me because it's like right at the top of my register before I start getting into like more falsetto kind of fake singing as I come to talk about it. But I've tried to lower the register. I've tried to sing it some other way, and the song demands it. The song demands it. So I think it's got to be that way. It's just got to be that way. So we'll see how it all goes from there. I hope you guys enjoyed that piece. It's really sticking with me, that one. It's really sticking with me. So before we move on, and Mystic, feel free to ask any questions you like, bud. You listen to Neutral Milk. Oh, I completely forgot, Lonnie. Dang it, that sucks. Sorry, when I get into the weekend is like my capitalist time. The weekend is like I sacrifice a few days to the capitalist system. Hold on, Neutral Milk Hotel. I'm gonna remember this time, Lonnie. I'm gonna remember this time right after the stream. I'll pop in on that. My bad. I'll definitely do that though. I love taking recommendations from the chat, and I love taking recommendations from people. And I'm finding so here's some news in regards to my music. There are open mic nights that exist here in Toronto, so I'm going to start going to them, especially now as we're going into a decline. And then also I have found somebody to actually help record my music. So I am going to touch base with them, and not this week, probably next week. I'll actually have some of my music recorded, and I'll put it up on the website they recommend, which is Bandcamp. And for people who are my like $5 level Patreons, I think I'll just let them have access to the music. And if you want to just buy the music, it'll be on Bandcamp. So that's coming. So the song you just heard, as well as This Year Sucks 2020 and Antarctica, I'll probably have ready by next week. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Ugh. So, Mystic, you're asking, why is greed to want to keep money you have earned, but not greed to want to take somebody else's money? So, the question itself, I think, has a misunderstanding of what is actually going on structurally. And I find that that's quite common, right? So, why is it greed to want to keep the money you have earned? Okay, well, if you are a worker, well, then that doesn't really, like, you sell your time to a capitalist, right? They give you the money you've got, right? You should want to keep it. And that makes a certain type of sense. But if you are the capitalist, right? And this is something crucial that you have to understand about the system of capital. And it is like the linchpin about why the system of capital doesn't work. Is that you have owners who typically are like inheritors of wealth or inheritors of social position that gives them a leg up on everybody else, right? They take the capital that was generated by labor in the first place and they withhold it from everybody else, right? That's how capitalism as a structure works. And even more than that, they're not actually earning what they get. They're taking the surplus value of someone else's labor, right? So a laborer does the work and the capitalist takes the majority share of the surplus value and gives the worker, the laborer, a stipend so that they can survive. And in this society, it's not even so that they can survive any longer, right? That's the reason why the collapse is occurring. That the system is failing because rents and wages are no longer in alignment, right? Like it's if your rents, if this is rent and this is wages, well then you get like a good portion of it to be able to spend on stuff. But what has happened is this, where now rent is here and wages are here, so it's not even covering it. And so people are just saying, well, why bother even working? Like if I'm going to be in poverty anyway, I might as well have my time. And so this is where the greed is, right? Like this is what's happened. That capitalists want to drive wages down while raising rents. And eventually it goes like that. And that's the reason the system collapses ultimately. And that is greed, right? That the capitalists are not actually earning their wealth in the first place. They're taking the wealth from the laborers. Capitalists do no work. They do know, all they do is own shares in companies that they probably couldn't even find on a map if they tried, right? That's all they're doing. They're just looking in line go up, that's it. They don't really have, they're not selling their time to do the work in the first place. And so the idea that what we're talking about is keeping the money you earned, capitalists don't earn anything. They don't do any work. They don't provide any value. They're parasites, right? They are parasites. That if you and I were to start a business together, Mystic, and I said to you, okay, you do all the work, you do everything, and I'll pay you slightly less than your rent and bills, and I'll take the rest of the money that gets earned while I go sit off in a corner and do nothing, right? Or go golfing or whatever, right? Would you agree to that arrangement? Is that something that you would agree to? Obviously you would say no, right? And you would think that I would be quite greedy to even assert that such a situation should exist in the first place, right? But that's exactly how the capitalist system works. That's exactly the arrangement we operate under. And so when you say that they want to keep the money who have earned it, they haven't earned it. Literally, they haven't. Structurally, they haven't. They don't actually do any work. They don't provide any benefit whatsoever. And the people who are actually earning the money are the people who are not getting paid enough to actually pay their rent and their bills. And so it isn't greed to want to take someone else's money in the same way that it's not greed to want to ensure that thieves don't keep the money they stole from the bank, right? Like, if I walk into a bank with a gun and I say, give me all the money, and then you give me all the money, and then I take all the money and I leave, and then I get arrested and there's like a whole thing, everyone would expect, let's take that money back. Like, the issue that we are talking about is that the structure itself is unjust, right? The structure itself is unjust. And it isn't possible for it to be just. I think that's what's really important to understand. That if you are walking around saying that these capitalists who do no work, who provide no value, who literally spend their money on just enormous vanity projects to benefit no one, to help no one whatsoever, that they quote unquote earned their wealth, I think you're already starting at a false place, because that's literally not what's going on. And anybody who creates an argument outside of that is just straw manning. That's what they're doing. They're not looking at the structure accurately. Whether that's on purpose or whether that's just on accident, then that's a whole other thing. Ugh. 1 second, guys. Let's see. Actually, people who run the business have earned their money because they manage accounting of the business. You're just talking about a higher level of worker, dude. Like, that's all you're talking about. Like, and most of those people are beholden to the bank, right? Like, the structure of what's actually happening is that there is a class of people called capitalists who own something called shares, right? And they don't, like, the shareholders never own, like, majority share in a company. They might if they have a vanity project that they care about. But someone like, take someone like David Thompson here in Canada. The wealthiest Canadian, his name is David Thompson, right? He maintains his wealth by owning 10% of everything. He owns 10% of every business, right? Is he working? No. He just owns 10% of every business. And literally, how did he get his money? He was born a billionaire. His official title is the third Baron of Fleet. He literally comes from monarchy money. Like, he's extremely wealthy because he was born that way. And he maintains and grows his wealth by owning about 10 to 20% of every business that exists. So if the business collapses, if a single business collapses over here, it doesn't really matter because he owns like 10 to 20% of everything else. And that's what the capitalists have done and are doing, right? And when you say actually people who run the business have earned their money because they manage it, and this whole narrative, right? You're completely misunderstanding what's being said to you. Like, and almost to the level where I have to say it's being done on purpose. That you're completely ignoring what's being said to you. But when you present this argument that you're presenting here, because the people who are run the business, earn their money, all that kind of stuff, well, those people are just a different type of worker. They're not even really a capitalist. Like, maybe they own like this one building over here, or they have like a ma and pop shop or something like this. But literally no one is talking about them. Like, literally no one is talking about them. So you're just erecting a gigantic straw man, pretending as though when we're talking about multinational billionaires, people like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, right? That's the same as like a mom and pop shop. Like, and the mom and pop shop is fundamentally beholden to a bank, right? They have to take out loans from the bank. They have to take out, they how do you think they got the structure? How do you think they're doing this? They take out loans from a bank. Who owns that bank? The billionaires, right? Like, not all billionaires are Lex Luthor, but yeah, they are, dude. Like, this is another thing that you actually have to understand. The science, we've done scientific studies, dude. Like, we've done the scientific studies of what happens to a person when they start to accumulate wealth, right? Like, your apologetics towards this are in the face of all facts and evidence. When the issue of what happens to a person when they accumulate massive sums of wealth is studied scientifically, the conclusion is and has always been and remains they become sociopaths. That's just a fact. That's a black and white. That's the science. That's what we've observed. That's what we've studied. That's what we've known. And when you say something like not all billionaires are Lex Luthor, mate, you're erecting a religious ideology that is counter to the observable science that we have studied. Sorry, dude. Billionaires are sociopaths. And they're sociopaths because they have to be. Like, they have to be. You have to be you become a sociopath when you're wealthy. And the only way to avoid it is to give your wealth away. That's the only way to avoid it. Doing anything else is just performative to maintain your strata of sociopathic thinking, right? That the only way to avoid becoming a sociopath is to give your money away. There's no such thing as a billionaire who is not a sociopath. Period. And that's the science, dude. That's the science. So you got to eliminate certain things from the way you're having this discourse. Like, billionaires are not mom and pop shops, right? A billionaire is not running a business or earning their money because they manage the accounting of a business, finance of the business. They don't do any of that. That's literally not what we're talking about. And also, like, not all billionaires are Lex Luthor. Yes, they are. Black and white. Black and white. There are communists who are sociopaths. I mean, there are sociopaths, but, I mean, can you show me one? Do you have an example? right? I have plenty of examples of billionaires who do sociopathic things, dude. Like, Bill Gates' name is on the flights to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile rape island. Like, Donald Trump, the Clintons, right? Like, there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of examples of wealthy billionaires and millionaires who are just outright black and white sociopaths. No, this isn't me angry, bud. This is just like, I'm just angry at the system that we're in. I don't mind having this conversation with you. I'm just like it baffles me. It baffles me that it's taking this long. Like, that's the thing that's baffling me. It's baffling me that it's taking this long for everybody to kind of put together what is intrinsically and obviously the case. That a small cabal of billionaires are obviously collapsing the society and the structure of the piece so that they can erect like a neo-feudal structure amongst themselves. And the reason why it's so baffling is because they've done exactly this before. Like, the Great Depression didn't come from nothing, right? The Great Depression didn't come from nowhere. We have quotes from people saying, from the billionaire class, Jay Gould, a notorious robber baron, right? They were called robber barons, right? That's a great name, by the way. For instead of calling them billionaires, we should call them things like robber barons, because that's what they are. Claimed that he could hire one half of the working class to kill the other half. May his callous, wicked legacy serve as a catalyst for solidarity and unity amongst soldiers. So, the Great Depression was caused purposefully because of the robber baron class that existed throughout the 1910s and 20s that led to the Great Depression of 1930 into the 40s. Like, we've seen it before. What we're experiencing is not different. It's the same thing, and I'm just surprised it's not happening faster. I love money over people because of my experience in this civil, nice, intelligent society. Guess my views on people is very different than yours. I mean, I study the humanities, right? Like, I have a theater background. Money and the accumulation of money is, and the structure of the society as well, is twisting and just like, people literally just want to like lay out in fields eating peaches and having sex. Like, that's literally all people really want to be doing. And the fact that they're not able to do that is twisting them into something else. That people will begin to act the way that the society is structured. That if the top layer of people are nightmare sociopaths who reward sociopathic behavior, well, then people start acting that way, right? Like, there is a spirit of a society that runs throughout each of us, right? That we have, there are existential connections that do occur between each of us that we're working as hard as we can to ignore or deny. That if the people at the top of the society want to do harm, then suddenly the people will begin to talk that way. It's and it's because it's structural, and it is structural, right? Here in the society, we're constantly at odds with one another. There is an antagonism built into the structure of the society, and that central antagonism is that there are people who own capital accumulation, right? The accumulation of the work of labor throughout time is called capital, and people own it and exclusively have it, right? They exclusively have it. And then there are people who work for them, who own nothing and do nothing. All they can do is sell their labor to this class. And this is the central antagonism built in our society that ultimately collapses the society, right? Because it's untenable. You can't actually move forward in a rational way, right? Like Lincoln said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Well, capitalism is by definition a house divided against itself. That you have one class versus another class. And these two classes fight one another regularly. Regularly they fight one another. They can't not. And then you get the existence of unions, right? Which is just a continuation and an extension of this constant struggle and this constant fight. And ultimately, the capitalist class will do things to ensure its power that is outright war, right? Like, and so as the society falls into this kind of collapsing situation that it is, it's happening that way because of the structure of the society itself. And it also makes it very difficult to pay attention to other countries, because here in capitalist North America, we seem to think that this is all natural. We seem to think that this is just how humans are, when it's completely the opposite of that whatsoever. It's purposefully structured. We've structured it this way on purpose. We obviously can change it. We obviously can do something different. Other societies are doing something different, which is why capitalists need to destroy those societies. Because if a superior model shows up and begins outdoing the capitalists, which is easy to do because, again, a house divided against itself cannot stand, that the capitalists' only recourse is to attempt to destroy it, right? That's all they can do. Because if they were to reform what they were doing, they would have to change the system of capital, and that would mean that sociopaths would not have power, and it would be a big problem for them, right? And these things, in my view, are becoming obvious. Like, these things are becoming more and more obvious. As time moves forward, it will get more obvious. It's basically a lifetime of torment for the working class unless you can find a job that is truly your passion. And I think, Lonnie, you're onto it here, where you're saying if you find a job that is your passion, there's a real good chance you will be exploited. Well, like, look at me, right? Look at me. I am doing what I am doing because I am passionate about what I am doing. I'm playing this music. I am every weekday I do this live stream, right? This is my passion. And hopefully through time, I'll actually be able to pay my rent with this. But the entire time I'm doing it, right, there are people who are coming along and taking the surplus value and nickel and diming me and all this kind of stuff, right? That even by the course of following my passion, there is going to be people who exploit and act as gatekeepers. Hey, DJ, hey, Duke, how you guys doing? Good to see you. And it's something that I'm just going to have to accept. It's just something I'm going to have to accept. Monday, October 11th. Correct. Sociopaths come in every wealth class. I don't think all billionaires are straight up sociopaths. Mystic, again, then you are against the science, right? Like, in my view, what you have said there is no different than saying evolution doesn't exist. Straight up. Straight up. All the science and all the evidence is showing that it is the case. Your thoughts on homeschooling? Do communists believe in homeschool? I'm indifferent. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. Homeschool your kid, don't homeschool your kid. Right? It's all the same to me. Oh! You're right. You're right. I didn't change that. You're right, bud. Here, let's do that. Monday. Bazinga. Thanks, bud. Ugh. I wonder what that does. I wonder if that changes it in an important way. All right. So now that we've got good numbers, let's do the today's number is. Today's number is. I'm going with a 3.
Here we go for today's number.
I never get
this.
It's
October 11, 2021. 10 balls.
10 balls.
Each ball has a number.
Where are the rest of you? Come on.
Numbers 1 through 10.
We got a 7 from Brandwin. Good to see you, Brandwin.
Swirl the number.
7, the divine number. I'm hoping for the 3. I have never once won this thing.
Pick
it's
a
never
number.
happened. Ruth in with the 4. Nova Scotia Commie with the 9. Good to see y'all.
Today's number
is 5.
5.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. How is it science? Isn't sociopath psychology? Science is biology, physics, chemistry. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, now you're wading into like what is science, right? Like what is that? But the reality is, like, science is creating a hypothesis, doing tests on that hypothesis, right? Reviewing it, getting it peer reviewed, looking at it, and there are hard sciences, like math, for example, is like the hard science, And then there are what has become known as soft sciences, like psychology or things like this. But you can follow if you follow this this pattern of hypothesis testing, peer review. It is science. And if every time you look at the issue and have it studied, you have a repeatable result, then that's the science. And the repeatable result that has come out of every institution without fail 100% of the time is that the more wealth you accrue, the more sociopathic you become. That's just the science. Like I straight up don't know how to convince you, bud. Like, you can Google this shit. It's real easy to find. Like, it's really easy to find. As someone who has worked various jobs and positions, there is no job in the hierarchy from supervisor on up that doesn't involve wittingly exploiting people. It gets worse as you go up. Yeah, that's true, Duke. That's true. Like, when you're just like a part-time like cashier, for example, and you just come in, you do your job, and you leave, right? You don't really notice it. Like, you know you are being exploited, right? But because you have such like an ephemeral or tenuous connection to it, especially if you're like a teenager or someone who has like a roommate or something like this, so you don't need like the full-time thing. But as soon as you get up into management, it becomes extremely obvious. Like, it becomes extremely obvious once you hit management that like you don't really consider these people human insofar as their life outside or any of that kind of stuff. That they really are just like numbers to fill a kind of thing and all of this. And especially if you're one of these backroom managers who's like looking at a spreadsheet, and once you delete someone's humanity from the conversation, which happens all the time. And of course, once you go higher and higher up the hierarchy, so like management, and then you end up like with regional managers or district managers or any of this. Do you value privacy? Are you for government spying on people? Are you for full surveillance? No, I would prefer... The privacy conversation's a tough one and an interesting one, right? Because I actually think that privacy is crucial. Like, if you don't actually have privacy in your society, then that's shitty. I don't really have a fun way of saying it. Like, everybody should be able to live their private life without interference. And what occurs in someone's own home, as long as it is not... Like, if you're abusing children or something, yeah, I think that we should fucking know about that. But the reality of the privacy issue, it's becoming harder and harder as we move into like a technocratic feudalism kind of situation, right? I would prefer it if we didn't have any of this stuff. But at the same time, like... Yeah, my thoughts on this issue are not very fully formed. My gut is to say that, look, people should be private individuals. I think it would be very shitty if someone's private life was grabbed and used to smear them on the public stage, which I think happens more often than we'd like. And I think that that's shit. I have seen some of my fellow workers raised to the level of supervisor, and it is the rare one that does not turn into a ghoul. Well, I know it happened to me. Like it happens. It just happens. Like, I went from being an employee to being an assistant manager, and when you go up to the assistant manager level, like, they expect you to be a ghoul. Like, they expect you to act that way. That if you start acting in the interest of the workers instead of the interests of the owners, they'll let you go, right? Straight up, like straight up. That's the expectation is that you are not aligning yourself with the workers, that you are not aligning yourself to help out workers, that what you are doing is you are moving forward exclusively for the interest of the owners, and if any other thing happens, they'll just let you go, right? Very straight, and they are willing to pay whatever they have to pay to just let you go if you are not going to act like the ghoul they expect you to act like. That is my trajectory. I've seen it, I have experienced it. That is what is expected of you, and if you don't do it, you are gone. No, I was doing the exploiting and damn good at it. How I went, yeah. It sucks to be part of these structures, right? Because these structures are designed to be exploitive, and we've normalized it, right? I think that's one of the things I get from you, Mystic, when I talk to you, and no hate for this, because I think it's quite normal that this happens, that there's been a normalization of this model, that one of the strategies that the capitalists use is to pretend like all of this is natural and normal, right? That there's capitalism is just human nature, that kind of thing. And by making those kinds of statements, it becomes normalized, and everybody just kind of shrugs and goes like, well, this is just the way it is living here in the world. And nobody actually goes like, no, we could do this differently. There are different models. The existence of unions alone tells you that there can be different models and different ways of doing things. And so I'll flow this into your next question. What type of communism is your type? Chinese or democratic? Well, let's be really clear about something with the Chinese system. It is democratic, right? The Chinese system is a democratic system. It's just not a multi-party democracy. That it's a single-party democracy. The people still elect people into the National People's Congress in China. So there's still an election of representatives up into this system. But because it's not multi-party, there isn't this constant sweeping away of other people's agendas, right? That you are electing people into the National People's Congress so that they can become part of the governing body that exists in China. And then from there, the National People's Congress is what's responsible for erecting other institutions and then ultimately electing the leader. Like Xi Jinping was elected by the National People's Congress, who in turn were elected by the people of China, right? And to be and another benefit of this Chinese democratic system is that it means that you know what like there's a vetting process, right? So unlike here in North America, where some lunatic like Donald Trump can become the president of the United States and have his finger on the button, and he's literally like just a grifter, right? Like the ivermectin thing alone should tell you that Donald Trump is completely a grifter. He used his presidency explicitly to grift people and enrich himself. That's his thing. Chinese is democratic, but Mike Bloomberg says this. Like this is well known, right? This is well known amongst the wealthy. Like everybody knows it. It's just not widely reported, right? I think it's great when you got no social or love or family life and you chase shitloads of money. Good for you, bud. I mean, that sounds kind of sad, honestly. Like that sounds kind of sad, frankly. Like I just think you'll end up with all your money and you'll kind of be like, man, I wish someone would just give me a hug. I just wish someone would give me a hug. The good managers do not last. They just don't have the heart for it. Yeah. Or they change, right? And I've seen that. I've seen that very thing. Like people I love and respect, they just change. They just become harder somehow. Yeah, like the Chinese Democratic. You can go to the Wikipedia, man. Like the National People's Congress. Just do a Google search of the National People's Congress. It's common knowledge. It's just not going to be reported through your media system, right? It's just not going to be reported through the media system. Because like the media system doesn't want to inform you of how things actually work, right? They don't want to inform you of the structure of your society, and they're certainly not going to inform you of the structure of other countries' societies, right? Because if they were to do that, then they couldn't foment this Cold War against China that they're intending to bomb. They're attempting to destroy 30% of China's economy, right? Like they've been very explicit and upfront about that. And so, of course, they're not going to tell you anything about this. Hitler was elected as well. Okay, like I don't know what to tell you, but like so is Donald Trump. And Hitler also removed one of his big acts was to eliminate the democratic system. Right? Do you see that happening in China? Do you see Hitler? And to be fair, actually, Hitler was not elected. Like, if you actually, like, go and look at the history of Hitler, Hitler was not elected. He was appointed. That the people who were elected... So, how it worked is that he was... the democratic system essentially ended up in a minority position, right? And the leadership, the liberals, essentially, instead of fighting back against Hitler, who was sort of rising up, and because they were in a minority position, they kept having elections and it was very exhausting. And so the liberals basically just capitulate to Hitler and essentially appoint him to leadership. So Hitler was not elected, right? He never actually gained majority support in the populace. But once he became appointed as the leader of the institution that existed within Germany, he very quickly sought to dismantle the democracy, right? So, and the struggle that Westerners have when it comes to actually talking about someone like Adolf Hitler is that he is one of the end results of a multi-party democracy that has been taken over by industrial power, right? Like Adolf Hitler was 100% in the pockets of the industrial power that existed in Germany at the time. That he was supported by the wealthy. Very straightforwardly. Another reason why he was appointed by the liberals ultimately, because they saw that he had the support of the industrialists in Germany, right? And so he had support of the wealth of the nation. And these sorts of things are just not happening in China, right? Xi Jinping does not have support from especially as he goes after the wealth of the nation. Do you think there should only be a one-party country? That's a really big question, Mystic. I mean, what we're seeing now and what we have seen throughout European history sort of shows that multi-party democracy doesn't really work. That it's constantly this one step forward, two steps back kind of situation. And anytime there's any kind of leap forward in any meaningful sort of way, it's because the populace itself rises up against the power structure and surrounds the halls of power. And so it's just like, it's not a way to actually govern. Like it's not, the multi-party democracy clearly is not a streamlined, effective way to actually govern or rule a country. Like constantly at odds with itself, within the structure itself, and then constantly at odds between the populace and the powerful. Like, and it's one of the things that I'm actually organizing. Come out Wednesday, October 13th at 3 o'clock, College Street and Yonge. College and Yonge, we're having a protest, right? Like this is not a way to structure an efficient society, right? It just isn't, and we are starting to see other models come up. The Cuban model, for example, has been very successful for the Cuban people, even as they are going through these harsh sanctions, which have all but crippled their economy. They're still managing to move forward and still managing to have major successes as they've been isolated by the Americans. And that Cuban model has also been somewhat adopted by the Chinese, who have been very successful with it. Like, the Chinese have had major successes, and that simply cannot be ignored. Like, that simply cannot be ignored. Like, I mean, if you attempt to downplay or ignore the major successes that China has had in the last 50 years, you're doing yourself and the people around you a very major disservice. And it does begin to raise questions of, like, why are they having these successes? And to me, it comes down to the fact that they don't have that structural antagonism. The structural antagonism doesn't exist in their society in the same way that it does exist in ours. That we are constantly battling, owners and workers are constantly fighting with one another. That the owners are completely incentivized to create wedges and to divide and conquer the populace constantly. Just doesn't exist in Chinese society. Not on the same level, certainly. He was appointed by the president, who is Ludendorff, former military dictator under World War I. Exactly, Duke. Yeah, exactly. I got a question. If someone's complete wealth is, let's just say, 40 million, how much do they pay in taxes in your communist ideology? I mean, I think 40 million is outrageous. I think, like, $1 billion is grotesque. Like, $1 billion is like, once you have $1 billion, you can reconfigure the society to meet whatever weird little thing you've got, right? Any weird little kink or fetish or any, like, weird worldview you have with $1 billion, you can start to restructure the whole society around you. And I look at the same thing with like 40 million. I'm just like, 40 million, fuck that. Like, I am more or less of the opinion that once you have $1 million, you're set, right? You're good. Like, you don't need more than that. Like, you don't. Straight up. Like, why would you? To what end? For what purpose? To do what? Right? And the only reason that someone wants to have more than $1 million is so that they can reconfigure the society to meet their weird little kink or something. And that so that they can no longer be an equal, right? And it's very straightforward, right? You want to have mass accumulated wealth so that you are above your peers, so that you can exploit and dominate your peers, and so that your will becomes the will. No. Just like no. I don't think it's necessary whatsoever. And like, there's even conversation about the value of money itself, right? Some people, I see some people, I think it might be you, Duke, who argues, or was that another fellow? Anyway, it might have been Dave. Anyway, people come in this chat all the time, and they start talking about how we should just get rid of the money, right? We should just get rid of the money. And more, like, as you look into it, you start to realize, like, yeah, okay. Because money itself is not real, right? And money is not really real. It's this thing that we created. It's this thing that has abstract value, right? It's this. I should put this up while I'm talking. This is the protest flyer. Please, if you're in Toronto, consider coming. It's what people don't understand is the more unequal the society, the more mental health problems, the more crime, violence, envy. Yeah, all of those things, right? All of those things. That's absolutely the truth. And once people begin to key in and recognize that we are not all in this together, right? That becomes a real dividing point on the society. America is pretty much a one-party country. Yeah, I mean, both the parties work on behalf of the corporate state, right? It's just the Democrats fly a little pride flag while they do it. America is pretty much far left and far right at this point. I mean, in terms of the populace, yes, but in terms of the ruling structure, no. One of the great grifts that the Democrats have been pulling, and the Republicans are helping them with this, is convincing people that Biden and these Democrats are in any way leftists or in any way far left. Like, the Democrats are essentially far-right conservatives, right? Like, the Republicans have gone full-scale fascist, and the Democrats are basically far-right conservatives. That there is no real, like, someone like Bernie Sanders, for example, like, everywhere else in the world, Bernie Sanders would be like a moderate left, like a center-left person, right? Like, he is not a far-left person. Like, he's very, like, someone like AOC is a centrist as far as I'm concerned. Like, in what way is AOC anything but a centrist? And so, well, and less like go outside more, but just like it's time to start seeing other countries and start seeing and listening to what other countries have to say about how they rule. Because like but you are accurate, Mystic, in regards to how the populace is splitting, right? That the populace is splitting between people who think we should take care of one another, and people who think we should destroy other people. That those are the fundamental positions, right? That you either want to destroy minority groups in the society. Here's a great tweet to illustrate exactly what I'm talking about. Far left, we're going to get everyone's basic needs met. Far right, we're going to exterminate entire social groups because they're impure. Centrists, I literally cannot tell the two apart. And that's how the populace is dividing, but the ruling structure is not dividing along those lines. Because the ruling structure in America is strictly theatrical. It's strictly theatrical. And the idea that it's anything else is kind of laughable in my view. If you are moderate, you are for the bins in America today. Yeah, because there is no moderate position, right? Like, in a society where huge sections of the populace are being abandoned, you can't be a moderate. There's no compromise on that, right? There's 600,000 people homeless in America. What's the centrist position on that, right? Like, in my view, it's extremely rational to say there shouldn't be homeless people. Like, we shouldn't have homeless people. Like, that's an extremely rational, normal thing to say. But if you say it, suddenly you're a fucking commie, right? So, be a commie. Yeah, America currently does not have a real leftist party. No, there's no leftism in America. That's not serious. Like, and I see that in their populace as well. Like, I mean, the quote-unquote leftists that exist in America, they're not attempting to galvanize and create street movements or anything like this. So, like, they're just, like, hyper-concerned liberals, really. Like, if you're not actually getting into the streets, if you're not actually, like, taking to the streets and taking over infrastructure and doing that kind of stuff, you're not really a leftist. What people don't understand is the more unequal the society, more mental health problems. Oh, yes, I already read that. But I want a spaceship. Exactly, dude, exactly. I'm for getting rid of the money and switching over to a resource-based economy. Yeah, I've heard that argument given, for sure. I think at this point that it has more to do with people's comfort, right? The money has become something comfortable. It's something that we know. It's like a number that we can use, right? We can look at our bank account and be like, oh, I have this much number, right? And so to get that out of people's mindset, I think would be very difficult. And like, people use money as a measurement of success, even though when you look at what they consider success, you're like, like literally destroying entire segments of the populace as well as the economy is success, right? Because again, what's the name of the channel? It's a capitalist death cult. So if you can destroy everything and convert the destruction of all of that stuff into fake money dollars, you're like, which is a measure of your like fake religious ideology, then you will. And perhaps you shouldn't, right? Real straightforward stuff like that. A mentally unhealthy society is what the rich psychopaths want. Yeah, I think there's something to that. They want people to be destabilized, for sure. They want people to be destabilized. They've said as much. We would have spaceships if we weren't wasting all these resources and human potential on capitalist nonsense. Yeah, I mean, the idea that we're, like, Richard Branson has his own space squad, right? And has his own space stuff. Jeff Bezos has his own space stuff. Elon Musk has his own space stuff. The United States government has their own space stuff. And instead of all of these people collaborating on a single thing to do a single objective on this, right, they're all going to fight amongst one another. You think there's no, like, corporate espionage and crazy shit going on that's constantly, like, sabotaging each other and backbiting and all this kind of stuff? Of course there is. Meanwhile, China and Russia are just like, because they're not dicking around with all this bullshit, right? They're not dicking around. They're literally like, we want moon bases, we want a base on Mars, like we're going to do it as a people, right? And it's and again, like, in my view, it's just becoming very straightforward. And then you get into the narrative, of course, that all the space stuff that comes out of Musk, especially, like Musk is just like 100%. Using the let's get to Mars narrative in order to militarize space. That's what they're doing. They're militarizing space, and they're using, like, we'll get to Mars and everything will be beautiful as the grift on the populace. They don't care about getting to Mars. What's on Mars? Who gives a fuck? Right? They care about the militarization of space. That's what they care about. Mentally unhealthy societies created by modern society themselves, regardless of their wealth or politics. I don't know if I understand that comment, honestly, because modern society is perpetuated on, like, wealth is central to today's modern society. Like, the accruement of these fake money dollars is absolutely central to how the society is structured. And whether you're rich or you're poor, there are still pitfalls, right? That the wealth itself, and if money was simply used as just like a kind of mechanism to ensure everybody had food and shelter and that everything was okay and that there was like a major cap on it, I don't think it would be so detrimental to the society. But because there's this idea that, like, you can have infinite money and that's completely fine, even though it's like it is a closed system, so there is no such thing as infinite money, and you're starting to see how it has major negative effects, because if you have all the money, right? If you have all the money, that means everybody else does not have any money. And doesn't that sound like a collapsed economy? Sounds like a collapsed economy to me. Society is a death cult, but you are cool though. Ah, thanks, Mystic. You're great. Isn't that a nice thing to say? And Mystic, I want to be really clear to you about it. I do not mind you coming in here and asking questions the way that you do, right? I find you to be very respectful and very kind in the way that you operate yourself, and I really respect that. There are people who come in here with like Ben Shapiro bullshit, and they just like double down on that Ben Shapiro bullshit. I just can't take it. But you come in here, you got your questions, and I know you're not necessarily agreeing with me 100% of the time, or you're not, maybe not even most of the time. And I don't mind. I really respect that you're just asking questions and pushing, right? Which that's how it needs to go. That's how it needs to go. So kudos to you, sir. The Soviets had good spaceships. Of course they did, right? Of course the Soviets had good spaceships. How you doing, Major? Good to see you, bud. I've been working on that song, bud. You said that you really liked that one song that I played the other day, and so I've been working on it. And I feel like I've gotten into a really interesting and good place. Mars won't be a miserable place in 400 years. Baby steps, eh? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's probably going to be the Chinese and the Russians that get there first, because they're the ones that are actually organized to do it. The obsession with going to Mars is so dumb. Mars is a miserable place, and the hardest part of space travel is getting out of the gravity well. So once you get out of the Earth's gravity well, which is like 80 to 95% of the energy expenditure for most of the trip most times, why crawl into another gravity well almost as big in Mars? Better yet, spinning tin cans as orbital habs. Well, and like, you're spending all of this time and this energy and then you've got to go terraform like this dead rock, and literally like you're failing to terraform your own place, right? Like it is 100%. Like the same people that are saying clean up your room and make sure your house is in order are literally saying let's go to Mars and fuck it up while we destroy the planet we came from. Like it's so fucking stupid. It's so dumb. Yeah, let's fix Earth before we go to Mars. Yeah, we we got to learn how to create sustainable environments, right? Like we got to learn how to create sustainable ecosystems, and we're just not interested in that. I respect you too, mate. That's why I keep coming here. You're easy to have a conversation with. Ah, how wonderful, Mystic. How wonderful. You're such a sweetheart. That's so nice to say. Well, and that's what I'm trying to do, dude. Like that's what I'm trying to do. Like this place is. I ask myself occasionally, like, what is the purpose of this channel? And I think it comes down to two things. Number one, we are here to grieve the death of capitalism. That we are grieving the death of capitalism together. That capitalism as a system, in my view, has already died. That we are doing something else now. And so getting through the process of grief, getting over the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, all of that, and which leads us into the second thing, which is to organize a solidarity movement to fight against the new structure that has arisen. I call it neo-feudalism. Some people call it autocracy or oligarchy, right? I've heard inverted totalitarianism, all that, if you really want to get into like policy wonkiness and all that. But I find when it comes to actually describing it to the populace, neo-feudalism seems to hit the mark, right? People understand, at least like in some kind of way, what a feudal society looks like, right? A medieval feudal society, serfs, kings, knights, lords, right? Priests. All of those things seem like built in to the way that we think about the world. And once you start talking about neo-feudalism, people start to really see the connections, right? Like that there are those tiers that exist in our society as well. And as things progress, it's going to get clearer. 400? Ha 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 ha! Terraforming can't take place on timescales less than hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of years long. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I just don't think we should be bothering. Like, it just seems to me like attempting to terraform a planet while we don't know anything about terraforming. Like, clearly, like, we don't know anything about terraforming. And we're pretending as though we can go to Mars and terraform Mars. We know literally nothing about terraforming. And how do I know we know nothing about terraforming? Because we're destroying our own planet. if we were experts at terraforming, we would in no way be destroying our own planet, right? But we are. So it's the most illiterate shit ever. We're just going to go to Mars and we'll terraform it. Yeah, that'll be great. Have you ever terraformed anything before? Have you ever actually created a sustainable ecosystem? Have you ever actually even researched or read into how to do any of this kind of stuff? Well, no. Well, how do you think this is going to be a success? Right? How do you think this is going to be a success at all? Like, it's so stupid. So stupid. You want to go get it, buddy? Go get it. Go get it. My little pup. Yeah. In 200 years, human will be far advanced. Imagine 400 years, they could definitely transform Mars. Mystic, that assumes the time that things are going to go in a linear manner, and they don't. That doesn't happen. That assumes that the technology is going to go like this, and that the society is going to go like this, and that we're all going to just like and then shoot a rocket up, right? Like that's the assumption that's behind that kind of statement. And the truth is that history doesn't actually operate that way. That you have periods where we spike up and then periods of decline, right? So it actually looks more like this, right? That you actually have like a wave that occurs, right? And you can say that there is a general trend upwards, if you like, that kind of goes like this. But there is moments where that general trend can also trend downward. And I would argue, I'm trying to say you can't predict and be sure. Yeah, that's true. You can't predict and be sure of the future. That's true. I just think that we're going into a decline more than we're going into an incline. And that a lot of the technology and all of these things, like, a big reason why I don't think we're going to get there is because we are not actually going to have a society that is structured in order to support it, right? That you can't actually achieve technological superiority or technological growth or any of these kinds of things while the people who are in control don't care, right? Like the billionaires and the millionaires only care about technology insofar as they can sell that technology. And when you have a society of salesmen, right? Like there are things that they are just not going to create because they know it won't sell. Like why would anyone create a cure for cancer, right? That sure, you could sell the first batch of it, but then cancer is cured and everybody has a cure for cancer, right? That's not how you make money, right? You're not making money that way. You've got to, like, capitalists are really good at sustaining misery and not so good at sustaining an actual society. And like you're just getting into kind of a territory of like, I mean, mystical thinking, if you prefer. I mean, that's great with the name Mystic Werewolf, right? Like, oh, there certainly will be a technology that we don't have now, but it certainly will exist. And it's like, I mean, that's maybe, but it's just kind of it's kind of magical. Aga, how you doing? Aga, I want to point you out and say thank you so much, bud. Thank you so much for your contribution. Aga, I'm not going to give the dollar amount or anything like this, but Aga did a big donate to the stream recently, right at a time where I was feeling really down about myself, bud. I really want to say to you straight up, thank you so much for your contribution, bud. Thank you so much for believing in me. Thank you so much for believing in me and believing in this channel. And I really needed it when it happened, dude. It was a real shot in the arm for me. And so thank you so much, Aga. And if there's anything I can do for you, bud, you let me know, okay? And what a great opportunity to say to everybody, hey, feel free to like, share, and subscribe the video. If you've got even $1 jangling around your pocket, think about donating to my Patreon. It's in the description. And a good opportunity to also say I am recording my music soon, guys, and I'm going to have it available on a site called Bandcamp. If you are a $5 or more Patreon subscriber, I'm going to just give you access to that music. And of course, if you just want to buy the music, I'll have that available as well. So again, Aga, thank you so much, bud. I'm glad I could help. I'm glad that I could help, bud. So let's create a feedback cycle of solidarity. That's what it's all about, bud. A feedback cycle of solidarity. Hey, Bumbleguppy, how you doing, bud? History shows technology always accumulates in the hand of the powerful and is wielded against the masses. Yeah, clean up your social structure first. That's what it's going to take, right? This is why I actually do fundamentally believe that if there are aliens and they are coming here, that they are actually peaceful. Because first of all, I mean, they've got the technology. If they wanted to eliminate us, they could, right? They could literally just be like, your atmosphere is gone, and that's the end of that conversation. But also, I think, like, I don't think that you could have like a warlike culture actually attain space. Like in sci-fi, there's always this idea that there's like a warrior culture and a warlike culture that's constantly fighting with itself and all this, and they attain space flight. I just don't think it could happen. Because a warrior culture will destroy itself with the level of technology that's required to attain space flight. And people really discount, like, space is unforgiving. Like, if anything goes wrong in space, it can destroy hundreds of billions of dollars worth of effort and work. Like, it really, really, really can. It really, really, really can. And so this idea that there's like a warrior culture that's going to come destroy the planet, I'm just like, oh, is it? Really? How'd they get off the surface of their own planet while they were fighting with one another? You are the nicest communists who will have conversations with anyone. That's rare, unlike other people telling me you should go outside more as an argument. Yeah, we're all people. We're all people, right? We're all people, and we should forgive one another. I think that's what it comes down to more importantly than anything. That we should forgive one another for these little moments, these little flippant things, all that kind of stuff. And I only really call myself a communist because people started calling me a communist. And I took Tyrion Lannister's advice. I was just like, if you take the thing that they are trying to put on you and you adopt it as your own, you can use it as a shield, and you defang them. They no longer have it as a weapon, right? And so I did that. But my central position, like I consider myself more a humanist than anything, right? Like I just think that we are all humans. We're struggling to figure out what's going on the planet. We're struggling to discover, why are we here? What is all of this? What is any of this? Like what is the purpose of any of this? Nobody asked to be here. Nobody asked to be where they are, right? The idea that I am somehow special because I was born in this one position where I'm a straight white male in a society where straight white males are the dominant force. Like it's an absurdism wrapped in an absurdism, and it just gets sillier and sillier to me. And the most frustrating part about living in the society that we're in is that instead of attempting to find ways to articulate what is this, why are we here, what is the purpose of any of this, we're busy wasting our time making fucking like lattes and shit. Like it's so fucking stupid. Like we're doing everything we can to completely distract ourselves. Like we live in a very distractionary culture. That's really what it is, that we're just distracting ourselves. And what are we distracting ourselves from? We're distracting ourselves from the legitimate investigation of what is this place and what are we doing, to the level where we say of the people who are attempting to articulate what is this place, what are we doing, all of this stuff, we call them lazy, right? Oh, you're not making a fucking latte for someone, you're so fucking lazy, right? It's embarrassing at this point. Like it's just kind of cringy to me. And so that's all I'm trying to do. Like I'm just trying to figure out, like, and I have my theories. I actually feel like I have a theory that I don't hear anywhere else. It just takes a while to talk about, and when I do talk about it, people get really like, I can tell like there's a group of people who are just shut off to the idea that there is such a thing as spiritual exploration, and so it gets very frustrating. But anyway, you guys are great. I won't get too much farther into it. I want aliens to be real. If they don't think they are interested in contact, or they're not interested in contact with humans. I actually think if the aliens are real, here's a fun thought. This is complete conspiracy shit right here. And I don't necessarily believe it, but I definitely think about writing a story along these lines of like, what if the electricity is sentient, right? Like we're using electricity all over the place, right? Well, what if it's sentient? right? And the aliens are coming, and who are they talking to? Well, they're talking to the electricity, right? And the electricity kind of fucks with us in little subtle ways. Like, you ever have your debit card and you're trying to interact with the machine, and you got to press it a couple of times and nobody knows why, and it's just kind of like not connecting and everything's kind of odd, right? Well, to me, that's the electricity fucking with us, right? Seeing what we'll do, right? Thank you about aliens. I've been arguing that for years. Femi was a dope. Aliens wouldn't want to visit an irradiated, polluted planet of killer monkeys. Exactly. Yeah, exactly, dude. Like, why would the aliens come down here, dude? Like, they're never going to come down here. Like, for why? For what reason? To what end? To do what? What do they need? Why would they bother? Right? Maybe they're watching us. The only question that I think the aliens are trying to ask of us is, are we a threat? Like, that's it. Like, are we a threat? Because, like, while I do believe that a warlike culture could not actually attain space flight and sustain it for any level of time, that doesn't mean that we can't lob bombs and shit, right? That doesn't mean that we can't do damage. So, if I'm an alien, I'm like, okay, what are these guys fucking doing? Like, they're fucking around with stuff that they don't understand. And, the Long Hadron Collider, that thing that we built and we just started fucking around with, I literally look at that thing and I'm just like, you're telling me that we are basically taking a gigantic hammer and smashing stuff that we don't really know what it is in the first place with it, and just like thinking that that's just not going to result in crazy shit. Like, it's pretty wacky to me. It's pretty wacky to me. We can't get along with each other, yet racism, superficial looks, nationalism, tribalism, and religions. How are we going to get along with extraterrestrials? Exactly, dude. Exactly. Like, no thank you. Like, no thank you. I'm pretty sure they're just doing flyovers to spy on us in their UFOs. I also do think that, like, they want to see what we'll do, right? That why wouldn't I want, like, there's like a fighter jet flying through the sky, so I'll just, like, be a space vessel and I'll just show up. Well, what is he going to do? Is he going to shoot? Like, is it literally like I show up and he shoots? Or is it like I show up and he's just like, what the fuck? And, like, he doesn't really know how to act, right? So in a sort, I think we're getting felt out. I think we're getting felt out right now. And I specifically think it's the Americans that are getting felt out. Why? Because the Americans are the ones that are nuking people. Yeah, just nudge an asteroid. Yeah, dude, no. If you want to eliminate all life on Earth, like if your goal was to just eliminate all life on Earth and then just resource suck us or something, you literally just need to eliminate our atmosphere. And that would be absurdly easy to do. You could just like bombard the planet with I forget the type of radiation, but there's a radiation that literally destroys our atmosphere. It would take 30 seconds. They could hit a button, just like, and that'd be the end of it. And it's something they could have already done several times over, and we'd never see it coming. There was nothing that we could be able to do about it, right? Like, yeah, humans, are we the real Planet of the Apes? So we got a real banana bread thing going on, eh, Bumble? That's what's going on. Real banana bread thing. So, to celebrate this day of Thanksgiving, here is a man in the Bahamas smashing a Columbus statue with a sledgehammer. I'm going to give my dog some peanut butter. Want some peanut butter? Let's go. Now, unfortunately, this guy got arrested for doing this. And this is about as far as he got, right? So the clip basically continues with the cops showing up and they stop filming and all that. And I say, let this man go. Let this man go. Take that statue down. Columbus was a genocidal maniac, dude. Like, the shit that guy did had like literally the other genocidal maniacs that were around during his period of time said of Christopher Columbus. Like, dude, what the fuck? Like, this guy, like, landed on an island and eradicated a people. Like, enslaved them. He would wear necklaces of their fingers and ears around his neck. Like, it was, he was a demonic figure in the world, for sure. All right, guys, I'm going to play this soon. I played this earlier, so sorry to you, Lonnie, and I think Mystic, you might have caught this. Oh, hey, Isaac, how you doing? I don't know if I've ever seen you in here. This song, the reason I'm playing it straight up, guys, is because it's caught in my head, and I've really come to love playing it, and so I'm just going to play it for you right now. This is called I Wish My Ma Was Here. These times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt, and nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry, I wish my ma was here. A soldier on the battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow old. And as the tears come streaming down, his mind at once goes clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries, I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it comes to arguing, she forgives and lets it go. And when I cried, she'd hold me, tell me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march out to the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the sky, they cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, with victory we'll cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yeah, we'll make the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Oh man, I love that tune, dude. I love that tune. I feel like it takes a lot of real dark things that are happening in the world and brings it right down into the heart. Right down into the heart. That's what that feels like. What can I address you as? I find it weird just addressing you as just Canadian. I don't know, dude. John. My name is John. As long as you don't call me late for dinner, as my dad would used to say. I wish I could sing half as good as you. Incredible, mate. I'm not music or arts person, but whoa, incredible. Oh, thank you, Mystic. That's so nice to hear, bud. It's always nice. Please, please, please continue inflating my ego. Like I really could use it. Let's let me play the other one, guys. You know the song. Technically, it's Jonathan, so it's without the H, just so you know. But I don't really care, honestly. As long as I feel like if it comes out of your mouth and it sounds like John, then I'm fine with that. You know what? Let's do This Year Sucks. Let's just do 2020. a month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't let me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks. Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you set explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. That is an interesting take on life, especially by a Taliban member. What? Oh, here we go. In terms of why we are here, as a Taliban fighter at a water park once said, we came here to have fun. Yeah. And isn't that weird? Isn't it weird that, like, if you say, I just want to have a good time, like, why shouldn't we have a good time? You're lazy and you're not focusing on the right things or any of that kind of stuff. That if you're not, like, worshiping your suffering, if you're not, like, living in suffering and pain, that's where meaning is, that somehow you're, like, degenerate. It's very, very odd to me that we live in a society where it's like, shouldn't, like, step one, everyone is safe, right? Food, shelter, all of those sorts of things. Step two, everyone's having a good time, right? Not to be a mood killer, but there are a pretty good number of leftists all over North America who make life miserable for young men who aren't good looking enough. I hope they listen to your song message. Dude, I agree with you completely. Like, because the leftist movement that exists in North America is so young and immature, it's filled with these sorts of pitfalls, which is why I'm trying really hard to create an environment of forgiveness and, like, not... Like, my nightmare, the number one thing that I'm trying to avoid, I do not want to be part of a schism. I don't want to witness it. I don't want to be part of it. I certainly don't want it on my own channel, and I don't want it in the organizations that I'm a part of. And schisms are devastating. They're devastating. And it seems to me like there's so many ideas flying around, and there's so many thoughts, and there's so much of this kind of stuff, that schisms are... going to happen for sure. And also, because they're so easy to happen, especially amongst leftists, our enemies actually foment schisms. They actually send people into organized movements in order to foment schisms and then create a schism and divide the organization. So Forgiveness is key. Forgiveness is key, right? You should perform. I know jack shit about music, but you should perform in front of a crowd. Absolutely, dude. Because of COVID, I haven't been able to, right? Like, because of all that. But I've been looking around, and there are open mic nights around me, especially on, like, nights like Sunday night. Like, I have no excuse to not go out on a Sunday night, and so I'm absolutely gonna start performing in front of a crowd. I have stickers printed, so I could, like, hand out stickers and stuff, and just got to get some of my music on the internet so that I can actually sell it, right? I don't really want to sell my music, but that's kind of where we're at, and so just start building a little thing, yeah. I've always known, like, my music, all of the music that I play for you guys is new music, right? Like, I've always played, like, a lot of, like, I used to play a lot of, like, Hallelujah, right? You know what I'm talking about? Why not, right? Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? And it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. Baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Now your faith was strong, you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty in the moonlight overthrew ya. She tied you to a kitchen chair. She broke your throne. She cut your hair, and from her lips she drew a hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, you say I took the name in vain, and I don't even know the name, and if I did, well, really, what's it to ya? There's a blaze of light in every word. It doesn't matter which you heard, the holy or the broken. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, I tried my best, it wasn't enough. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I told the truth, I didn't come to fool ya. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Oh, man, been a while since I played that piece. All right, mate, I got to head out. Just know, coming from a right libertarian, someone who's total opposite of you. You got my respect. Take care, mate. Good. Have a good night, Mystic. I'm glad you're doing well, bud. We'll get you. We'll get you. On October 1st, 2021, Spain wrote a letter to Mexico asking them to protect and respect Hernan Cortez's tomb and other conquerors. Ah, yeah, fuck that bullshit. Fuck that bullshit. Like, no. What the Spaniards did was actually fucking way worse. Way worse than what the North Americans did. That the North American genocide of the First Nations people occurred over the course of a period of time. That there was an unfolding of it that occurred. The Spaniards literally just went in and fucked everything up. They literally just went in and fucked everybody up. That like it was the purest form of what you would call an extermination or a genocide. Like there was it was so the idea that if the Mexicans decide to like destroy all that shit, fuck good. Get rid of these guys. Like get rid of these fucking guys. Unbelievable what the Spaniards did. Like the only reason we know anything about like the art or the culture of the Incans or the Aztecs or this kind of thing is because some of the priests that went in tried to save some of it. But a lot of the Incan art and the Mayan art and all of this, they were stolen and shipped overseas so that they could be melted down because they had a lot of goldsmithing, right? They melted it all down and changed it into coin, right? And then they used all that coin to do what? To colonize the New World, right? So it's just absolutely brutal. And Major, you saw Leonard Cohen live? What a treat. What an absolute treat. Leonard Cohen says of Hallelujah, or said, if you prefer, that he wished people would stop performing it and just find their own way to articulate what they love about the piece. And my response has steadily become, tough shit, Leonard. Like you did it. Like you did it. You found a way to kind of articulate the beauty and sadness, the bittersweet reality of life and death, right? You managed to capture it in this absolutely beautiful piece. I actually think you can thank Jeff Buckley for popularizing, right? Leonard Cohen created it, but Leonard Cohen's original version wasn't as good as Jeff Buckley's, if you ask me. And now everybody wants to be part of it, right? So tough tits, Leonard. I respect where he's coming from, though. It would be really good if I could create a piece like that. That would be like my life's achievement if I created a piece that was of the theme surrounding Hallelujah. It would be absolutely brilliant. Don't get me started about how every natural feature on the North American continent was named the Devil's whatever. Yeah, exactly. The Devil's gonad, the Devil's finger. Like, just absolutely dumb bullshit. All right, let's say bye to the mushrooms. Oh, yeah. So a lot of this is just going to be... Oh, this is what I want to talk about. KGB archives show how Chrystia Freeland drew the ire and respect of Soviet intelligence services. Now, unfortunately, this is one of these block kind of things, but I've done a little digging around, and it straight up turns out that Chrystia Freeland was part of the neo-fascist movements throughout Ukraine during the Cold War, right? That she operated as a proto-fascist spook, basically. That's fucking terrifying. Like, that's some terrifying shit to learn about Chrystia Freeland. And she is like, she is going to be the new leader of the Liberal Party. Like, she's the next leader of the Liberal Party for sure, after Justin Trudeau goes. And, like, we know how the mainstream media is. They're never going to question her about this. It's never going to become an issue of, like, hey, back during the Cold War, you were working with, like, fascist movements within Ukraine. Care to explain? Gives you a real understanding of what's going on in the Liberal Party and why the Liberals do things like continue to support the Victims of Communist Memorial, that sort of thing, which literally takes, like, the Nazis killed in World War II and treats them as victims, right? Like, really, really fucking dumb shit like this, where like, Nazis are supposed to be, like, victims. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Nazis are not victims. Like... If Nazis are victims of anything, it's themselves. That's it. It also does things like if there was like an earthquake or some kind of like landslide or something that happened in the Soviet Union, a natural disaster that killed people, it says those people are victims of communism. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? It's really, really embarrassing, like what the victims of communism consider victims. It's so like, if that's what they're doing, it's very hard to take them seriously, right? That if there really were victims of communism, like, probably wouldn't be the Nazis or like the people who died because there was a landslide or an avalanche or something, right? So deeply concerning to me that the leader of the Liberal Party is like a former Ukrainian fascist spook. I hope more information comes out on this, because a single report is not enough to convince me. But Chrystia Freeland has a lot of that stuff surrounding her, right? Like her grandparents, for example, were former Nazi collaborators, right? And what do liberals always say of this? Well, you can't condemn somebody for their grandparents, right? Like, that was their grandparents. You can't. But now it's coming out that like Chrystia Freeland like literally grabbed that Nazi sympathizer torch and carried it on herself. So yeah, we need a memorial to the victims of capitalism. Absolutely. Like, I mean, and the victims of capitalism are way more obvious, right? Like, it always seems funny that there's like victims of communism and there's like this secret idea that behind the scenes they did a thing. Meanwhile, the capitalists are literally like destroying countries, like literally bombing countries into submission. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia, right? Like Iran, like literally just like laying waste to entire cultures and societies in the modern era, not even going back to the shit that they did while they were starting, like now. But like the communists are the villains because there was a famine, right? Like it's becoming really incoherent. Yeah, fascism is so hot right now. Oh my god, guys, fascism. And but that's what's unfortunate, Bumbleguppy, is that fascism is hot right now. Like, there are literal open fascists who are actively operating in America as like pundits and shit. People who call themselves fascists, right? Like in the Daily Beast crew, there's a guy, I think his name is Matt Walsh. He calls himself a fascist, right? Like, fascism is hot right now. Yeah, I guess Canada will keep training Ukrainian Nazis, as we do. As we do. Absolutely. Abso-flippin'-lutely, dude. Oh, I love this. This encapsulates a lot of stuff. I hate communism. Of course you hate communism, Ma. You were raised a fascist. Golden Girls, man. Laying it out. Golden Girls. Just like being like, boom. Eat it. Eat it. Man, what a great show. Honestly, Golden Girls. Deontay Wilder took 4 jobs to support his daughter. 4 jobs to support his daughter, who is unwell, and to give her better care. He began boxing to gain money for his daughter, and he was still working his regular job. So 5 jobs, one of them being get punched in the face. He is the American dream. He is an absolute legend. Respect Wilder. The response? Man had to work 4 jobs and get proper care for his daughter, and they call that a part of the American dream. This is a nasty place we live in. Fascism means fashion forward this fall as liberals embrace spooky Halloween spooks to celebrate the season. That's a funny line, dude. There's lots of funny stuff in that. I've always thought a YouTube channel as big leftist collaboration would be a great way to at least raise awareness for and fundraise for a monument to victims of capitalism. Yeah, for sure. You could do that project. That actually would be really easy to do. Just like create a Discord and then like people put in their info and all that kind of stuff. I shouldn't say easy, but just like it's definitely something that could be done. Yeah. Oh yeah, so Jen Zedong is pointing out that the imperialist Westerners are starting to back off on the Uyghur narrative, right? They're still trying to claim that what's happening in China, like, Here, let me put this guitar away, and then I'm going to get into it. So, what has been happening? All right. So, what has been happening in the Xinjiang province of China? It has been a military conflict, right? That the CIA has been funneling terrorists, Uyghur separatists with the East Turkmenic Islamic movement into the Xinjiang province, right? And they've been doing that simultaneously while there has been a major refugee crisis going on the border between Afghanistan and China. That there is a major conflict happening in the Xinjiang province. There are major acts of violence that are occurring because of all of this, right? And it's culminated in the Chinese going in and attempting to find solutions to how to deal with these crises that don't involve just dropping bombs on people the way the Americans do, right? And because they decided, we're going to create education centers to try to give people who have only known war, who have had their lives destroyed, and some of these guys literally walking around being like, yeah, if I can get some explosive, I'll strap myself to them and blow myself up for the glory of Allah, right? They're outright saying this kind of shit. And so what are you trying to do? Well, you're trying to make it so that you can integrate them into your wider economy. How do you do that, right? How do you integrate people into your wider economy? Well, first, you teach them Chinese. Second, you give them some skills. So the analogy or the mirror to this, rather, because it's not an analogy, it's actually happening, would be if the detention centers along the Mexican-United States border, right? The ICE detention centers, if they started to teach those people English and give them some skills and then release them into the populace, right? That would be a similar analogy. They're not doing that, of course, which makes them morally superior for some reason. So pretty similar situation that's happening. The Chinese solution, teach them Chinese, teach them a skill, let them go. And because they've been doing this, what has it been doing? It's been de-escalating the conflict. It's been working, right? It's been working. That the terrorist separatist groups are finding it harder and harder to find allies because people are actually finding support systems through the Chinese Communist Party. It is analogous to, like, have you noticed that the Joker, like, what's the Joker's superpower? He doesn't have one, right? The Joker's superpower is that he's able to walk up to poor, desperate people and say, hey, do you want to smash up the place with me? And they say yes. So now imagine like someone like the Joker is walking around, walking up to people who have employment opportunities, who have kind of something built, and he's saying, hey, do you want to smash the place up? And they're saying, not really. Like, what happens to the Joker under those circumstances? Well, he can't do anything, can he? He can't actually get anything done. He can't actually support anything. And so because these policies are working, now we're starting to see Western sources coming out admitting it, and of course they're finding a new way to try to shift this. So the panic that gripped the region a few years ago has subsided considerably because the policies of the Chinese Communist Party are working, and a sense of normality is creeping back in. But there is no doubt about who rules. Yeah, like the Chinese rule the Xinjiang province, obviously. So you can see how all they've got left is shade throwing, right? It'd be like saying, like, the tensions in Wyoming have de-escalated, but there's no doubt about who rules. Like, okay, so fucking stupid. So then flipping over to the next one here. Whoops. The barbed wire is almost gone, right? Because conflicts have de-escalated because the Chinese policy of training people and reintegrating them into the wider economy is working. So are the armored personnel carriers. Young Uyghur men are back on the streets. Beijing is slackening its grip on Xinjiang after a brutal mass detention campaigns, but fear remains pervasive, right? You see how the Westerners are reporting it with this, like, inflicting oppression, like, instead of actually reporting it on what was happening, right? Instead of actually reporting that there is, like, a massive conflict that the Chinese just find themselves in, right? That they didn't cause themselves, that fallout from the Afghanistan war, as well as fallout from a separatist movement, which incidentally the CIA works with, needed to be responded with military force, which it was. and now through this process of reintegration, which has worked completely, but fear remains pervasive. Yeah, of course fear remains pervasive rather. Fear of the CIA coming in and continuing its training of Uyghur separatists and Uyghur terrorists in order to bomb people in the region. Fear of the United States government launching attacks against the Chinese people. Absolutely, fear remains pervasive because the Chinese understand that their attempts to deal with this situation peacefully without actually bombing anybody or maintaining detention centers forever, which seems to be the American solution, that the American solution is very much detain people forever, right? Which is what the ICE detention centers are. There's no policy for getting these people released. There's no policy for getting these people reintegrated into the society, and yet the ICE detention centers are somehow seen as more superior than what the Chinese did, which was a policy of reintegration into the society. It wasn't a fucking genocide. Like, it's straight up not a genocide. And you're just seeing more and more. Chinese authorities have shifted to subtler methods of controlling the Uyghur Turkic Muslims of Xinjiang, perhaps due to, here they are just taking responsibility for it, right? Perhaps due to searing criticism from the West, along with punishing political and commercial sanctions. But the fear in Xinjiang persists. Like, straight up, they're saying, like, oh yeah, it's the white colonial critique of the system that actually worked, that managed to do this, right? Certainly wasn't done in spite of the Westerners, right? It was done because of the Westerners. So this is the shift in propaganda now. That the shift is now away from there's a genocide going on to there was a genocide going on, but we stopped it with our criticisms. Because white people have the ability to stop things through criticism. And again, it's like, since when has America ever given a shit about Muslims? Since when have they ever given a shit about Muslims at all? They're actively destroying Iraq. They're trying to destroy Iran, Somalia, Syria, right? Like a coup in Egypt. Like, they literally had a 20-year war in Afghanistan that they just wrapped up on. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? No one takes this credibly. Like, everyone outside of America is just like, yeah, okay, bud, whatever you fucking say. Like, it is actually embarrassing. Like, it is actually embarrassing. But the fact that there are people who are grabbing a hold of this and will say for generations to come that there definitely was a genocide that happened. That 100%, yeah, absolutely the truth. Like, literally, what would it take to convince them? They can't be convinced. You can find videos of Uyghurs existing, being part of police forces, being part of the society. You can see it. You can search videos on YouTube for it, right? It's easy to find. And yet we're supposed to actually believe that, yeah, there was a genocide and we stopped it because white people critiqued it. White people solving problems through rational discourse. That's how it goes, for sure. For sure. Like, wow. What's the next thing here? Uyghur teenage boys, once a rare sight, now flirt with girls over pounding dance music at rollerblading rinks. One cab driver blasted Sharika as he raced through the streets. Like, this was normal. Like, this is normal. Like, it's this normalization of the idea that there was a genocide in the first place, right? And now that it's completely, like, you cannot maintain this position that there is a genocide going on, especially now as they are starting to dismantle the military aperture because they no longer need it because the policy was successful. So now it isn't that there is a genocide, it's that there was a genocide. And that the Uyghurs are just like, oh yeah, we're just coming back out into the streets now, instead of literally like having it always be the case. Okay, buddy, you are out of peanut butter, bud. You're out of peanut butter. Yeah, accuse others of what you yourself are guilty of. Exactly. Like the Americans are overseeing a genocide in Yemen, a genocide in the occupied territories of Palestine, and while also having detention centers on the U.S.-Mexican border, right? Like, and not to mention their own prison system, where they only have something like 4% of the world's population, and yet they have like 25% of the world's prison population. Like, and most of the prison population is black. Like, what do you fucking think is happening, guys? Like, what do you fucking think is happening? Why would you ever think the Americans have any credibility whatsoever? And yet I'm supposed to sit here and be like, yeah, the media is absolutely telling the truth. And I say this to people all the time. How much do you trust your media? And everybody says the same thing. Like, I say, give a scale from 1 to 10. How much do you trust your media? 1 being very bad, 10 being really good. Everybody says below 5. I've never actually had anybody say above 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 doesn't happen. Right? It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all across the board. Some people say 0. Some people are like in the negatives, right? And then I say to them, like, so then why do you trust them when it comes to China? And every single time I say this, I get this kind of like they're stunned into silence about it, because they haven't quite connected the dots in their head that the people who are liars and have been lying to them about everything all the time, to the point where they themselves say, I don't trust these people, are the same people that are lying about China. Why? So that when the Americans go in and try to destroy 30% of the Chinese economy, which they've stated is their objective, we'll just sort of stand around and be like, yeah, that's right, China. Huh, yeah, China's bad, because my media that I don't trust told me. Like, that's how stupid the situation has become. Like, there is no Uyghur genocide. There never was a Uyghur genocide. And if you're trying to walk around say that there's a Uyghur genocide, I genuinely think at this point you're either actively, purposefully misinformed or just stupid. Like, that's really where we're at now. Because, like, there's so much pushback. There's so much evidence countervailing this narrative that there is a Uyghur genocide. It's become kind of embarrassing. Yeah. So, thus ends the Uyghur genocide rant. It's going to get more and more obvious as time goes forward, guys. Like, it's going to get way, way more obvious as time goes forward. The only constitutional exception to slavery in America is for prisoners. Exactly. Slave labor, prison camps, exactly. Have you seen the disabled black guy that was dragged out his car by the hair? Ugh. Gross. I don't think I want to, dude. That's gross. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, the police in the United States are not like police. They are soldiers. They are an occupying force. That's what they are. That the police live in like a suburbia town right over here, and they go work in like a slum or like a ghetto over here, right? And so the U.S. gives money to the ghetto to hire police, and so they give it to these guys so that the money can go over here. So literally, like, no money for these people, money go here instead, occupying force, right? That's the way it operates. That's the structure of the piece, and it's and the outcome is really clear, and because the prison system itself is privatized, right? There are all of these incentives to just funnel black people into the prison system, right? It solves so many neo-colonial problems, right? What do you do with a black population that keeps spitting out civil rights people, that keeps spitting out people who articulate and speak out against their enslavement? Like they had to shoot Tupac for this. They shot Martin Luther King for it. They shot Malcolm X for it. And so eventually they're just like, well, what do we keep doing about this? All these black guys keep standing up and actually articulating their own enslavement. And that's bad. So what do? We just enslave most of the, or a huge section of the population, right? We enslave enormous sections of the population, create slave prison labor, basically recreate the plantation system, right? And somehow call this justice. And like you hear all these stories where like a minor offense. Well, for God's sakes, George Floyd was publicly executed for the crime of what? Like stealing $20 is what he was accused of, right? So man steals $20, publicly executed in the street for it. Absolutely brutal. Like absolutely brutal. And yet this culture we're supposed to believe when they turn around and say like, oh, there's a genocide going on in Xinjiang. It's for sure, guys, there's a genocide going on. That's for sure happening. Yeah, we're not just saying that so that we can bomb the place. We're saying that because we genuinely care about Muslims for some reason in this particular case. Like, no, you don't. Like, no, you fucking don't. Right? And at the end of the day, from the beginning of if you go back through my history, I've been talking about this for a year at least. My statement always has been, evidence, please. Evidence, please. Evidence, right? And they never have any. They never have any. Like, for God's sakes, they sent a BBC film crew into one of these centers and found nothing. They found nothing. And in fact, they confirmed the story that the Chinese were saying through this BBC documentary. Like, evidence, please. Evidence, please. They never have any. There has never once been a shred of evidence provided outside of like CIA assets like the World Uyghur Tribunal or the National Endowment for Democracy, which literally are like there for regime change. That's what their stated agenda is. And it's just like, it's becoming embarrassing. And sometimes people do wander in here or put posts on all this kind of stuff, being like, oh, you're just a genocide denier. It's like, yeah, I will deny things that have no evidence. Like, that which is claimed without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Evidence, please. Oh, you have none? Here's a document that the Chinese could possibly use to abuse, possibly, maybe. Look, you dummies. I'm going to be really explicit about this, okay? When cultures begin to do a genocide, it's not done in secret. It's not done through, like, secretive, underhanded means. When societies commit to a genocide against a people, they explicitly state that that is their goal, and they do it. Adolf Hitler wrote a book called Mein Kampf, where he said his goal was to exterminate the Jews. The residential school system here in Canada was explicitly built with the goal of killing the Indian, right? When the colonial people came over to North America, they outright stated that their goal was to eradicate these people, right? Show me even one person in China. Show me even one person, one governor, one document, anything, where they are saying, our goal is to commit a genocide against the Uyghurs. It doesn't exist. I've never seen it. Evidence, please. Until such time, get fucked. The whole genocide language co-opted by capitalist warmongers is laughable. Absolutely, dude. Like, absolutely. Like, the Americans are committing to... Like, they've got 3 genocides going on right now. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like... And again, it's the same people. The same people who are like, you need to clean up your own house and stand up straight and get things right and all that kind of stuff. The same people are then turning around and pretending like they have the right or the credibility to critique China while their own culture does fucking 3 genocides. Like, it's brutal. The manufacturing of consent always improving, yeah. War with China for the MIC? No, they are genociders. Yeah, exactly. It's so fucking stupid. Like, it's so, like, show me a document where China is even saying, like, we are going to, we are interested in war at all. Like, the Americans are literally releasing documents saying that there's a document called Thinking Through the Unthinkable, comes out of the Rand Corporation, where they outright talk about just bombing China, destroying 30% of its economy. Like, anything like that coming out of China? No? Oh. Who's the aggressors, do you think? Like, who do you think's... And now it's becoming more and more obvious, right? Because the conflict that was happening in Xinjiang has been resolved, because the policies of the Chinese government have worked, right? That the reintegration of these extremist groups, that the reintegration of these refugees into the wider economy has worked. And so it's harder for people to actually foment discontent and create military attacks and things like this, because they know that they have a choice. They know they've got a choice. That if the option is grab a gun and a bomb and go in and blow places up and then maybe get arrested and imprisoned or die, or go to this center, learn Chinese, make some money, and be reintegrated into the society, lots of people are taking this option. Lots of people are taking that option, right? Like lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people are taking that option. And it's becoming embarrassing to see now. Like the people who are really doubling down on the Uyghur genocide myth it's just getting to be like the same people who like refuse to put on masks and get a fucking vaccine. Like it's like a flat earther thing now. Like it's embarrassing is what it is. It's embarrassing. So give it a rest. Stop trying to go to war with China. Like stop going to war with China. They're just a people attempting to make their way through the world, right? They're not even imperialist. Like it's especially cringy that it's coming out of Americans. Like what are you fucking talking about? Americans don't have the right to critique any culture or country ever. Not even a little bit. Not even a little fucking bit. Right? Americans are so fucking stupid about their own country. They don't have the right to talk about some other country they know nothing about. Ugh. So, switching over here to Bloomberg Wealth, top 1% of U.S. earners now hold more wealth than all of the middle class. The middle 60% of U.S. households by income, a measure economists often use as a definition of the middle class, saw their combined assets drop to 26.6% of national wealth as of June. The lowest in Federal Reserve data going back 3 decades. For the first time, the super rich had a bigger share at 27%. Here's the graph.
Everything's got hunky-dory. Everything's working out just fine, America. America's totally fine. Yeah.
So 1% of the society has the same amount of wealth as 60% of the society, right? And you know why they're not including the lower class in this, right? Like you know why they're excluding that like bottom 20%, because they know it would make the figure way fucking worse. They know it would make the figure way, way fucking worse. Oh, Ezial, you slipped in here and I didn't say hi. How you doing? Happy Thanksgiving to you, bud. Happy Colonial Day to you. USA, 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 USA. Dude, I keep talking about it, man. I keep talking about it. Like, the United States is going to go into, like, 100 years of humiliation, a la the Chinese, right? Like, it's going to be really, really, really fucking sad. It's going to be really fucking sad as the United States falls into this civil war. Like there's, I used to, like maybe about 2-3 years ago, I had this kind of hope that America would somehow pull up and create a more egalitarian society and all this kind of stuff, and that it could possibly go in that trajectory. That's not going to happen. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, the society is going to fall into a civil war with itself. It is going to have a massive conflict with itself. And that massive conflict is going to be for the benefit of the super wealthy in the society. That the super wealthy will sell weapons to both sides. The super wealthy will empower both sides to fight with one another. It's a classic divide and conquer strategy. Like just how many speculate that Vietnam was used to take a generation of kids who could be like protesters and fight in a civil rights movement, took that generation of kids and funneled them into the Vietnam War. Well, they're going to do the same thing here, except we are the ones that are going to be going at war, right? We'll be fighting amongst ourselves in the streets, and you can see it in places like Portland, right? In places like Portland, the war is already ongoing. Like, it's already there. You have the Proud Boys who are supported by the police, right? The police don't do anything to prevent the Proud Boys from doing anything. The police don't confront the Proud Boys, right? So the Proud Boys and the police work together. And then you have the Antifa people, which I think are just like regular fucking citizens. And they have routine conflicts with one another, right? You have like the Kyle Rittenhouse situation where you have a kid that showed up with an actual gun and shot some people, right? Like the conflict is ongoing and it's only escalating. And it's going to get bigger, and it's going to get louder, and it's going to get crazier. It's going to get crazier, guys. Like, there are events coming that are going to make the George Floyd protests look like just like regular shit. If you're not careful, studying how stupid the American system is will make you stupider just by exposure. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Abso-fucking-lutely, man. Every real genocide in history has always been accompanied with mass xenophobia towards the genocided people from the general populace. I don't see any anti-Uyghur sentiments amongst the Chinese people. Yeah, like there's that, first of all. But I make it even more explicit than this, as y'all. Like, when a culture commits a genocide, it is extremely well documented. I can show you documents coming from the Canadian Parliament, where in the Canadian Parliament, sorry, there's a bug on my lens. Boink, got him. Sorry. In the Canadian Parliament, people were saying we should erect a school system in order to cleanse the Indian from the Indian. Like we need to eliminate them. There needs to be a final solution to the Indian problem. Like these statements were made in Parliament, in front of everybody, and everybody went, yeah, I agree, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's do it. And they all voted for it. You can see it with your eyes, right? Like, again, the Hitler example, right? Like Hitler had a book he wrote called Mein Kampf, where he said, I would like to eliminate the Jews. Everybody knew this. He got votes in spite or because of this. He's walking around with a book that says explicitly that that's his goal. And then when he gets into power, oopsie, the guy that said he wanted to commit a genocide on everybody openly all the time, constantly, did. Right? There's literally nothing like that in China. There's not a scrap of paper. There's not a single person in their political system. And like this also gives enormous lie to the Uyghur genocide thing, because how do you organize something like this? How do you organize a project of genocide without talking about it? Right? Like that's what the Americans are saying. The Americans are saying that the Chinese are somehow managing to commit to like an 8 million people scale genocide, right? Without talking about it. How are they doing that? How? What magical power? What mystical quality do the Chinese have where they're able to silently communicate with one another that we should do a genocide against the Uyghur population, right? Like, it's insane. And the more you think about it, the stupider it gets. Like, and like the Uyghur population increased over that period of time. The Chinese government funneled billions of dollars into the region to create infrastructure. Like, you generally, the more you learn about it, to maintain the myth, you've got to get stupider and stupider over time. You just need to get stupider. And it's the same thing as the WMD thing. It's the same grift. Just tell a big lie, everyone will go along with it, so that when we start the bombing, no one will complain. And it doesn't matter if it comes out later that it's a lie, right? And just like, why would you ever believe the Americans? They've literally lied about every single war they've gone in ever. Every single war they've ever fought is based on a lie. Like, it's just like, it's embarrassing at this point. I'm not sure there will be a conflict like you envision. The liberals will side with the fascists and just change the language. The poor may be exterminated, though. I mean, sounds like a conflict to me. The poor may be exterminated. But you think about, like, your Trump folk, right? Like, your Trump folk will go to war with the Antifa people, and the Antifa people will go to war with the Trump folk, right? Like, I saw the Rittenhouse situation on a live stream. Oof. Genocide takes hate on a society-wide scale. You're right that it is hard to miss, man. Like, it's always right in front of your face. Just look at U.S. genocide projects. The war on drugs was very openly talked about, yeah. And the war on drugs is actually a great one to bring up within the confines of this conversation, Duke, because it's now come out. Like, there's been a Nixon aide recently that came out saying that, like, yeah, we did that to attack the black population and the hippies. Like, that's the reason we did the war on drugs, was so that we could dismantle black organizations and dismantle communist hippie organizations, right? That's the reason they did it. And I love the quote, because the quote is like, did we know we were lying about it? Of course we did, right? Like, they knew exactly what they were doing. And this idea that, like, that this society feels it has the credibility to turn around and critique any other society is a joke to me. Like, maybe take your own advice, conservatives. Maybe clean up your own house. Maybe make your own bed. Maybe eat your vegetables, right? Maybe actually attempt to consider that the other countries around you are your peers and not something to be dominated or controlled. That's exactly what happened in the Rwanda genocide. They had to get one group to hate the other group. Yeah. Like, it's a tactic of the ruling class, divide and conquer, right? And have them fight amongst themselves. right? If they're fighting amongst themselves, they're not fighting you, right? If they're fighting amongst themselves, they're not fighting you. And if it comes down to it, like we know that these guys are psychopaths, right? Like when Bernie Sanders was threatening to defeat Hillary Clinton the first time around, and then Joe Biden, the wealthy people within the Democratic Party were upfront about it. They said straight out, if Bernie Sanders does win, we'll just vote for Trump, right? Like, they have no allegiance. Their allegiance is to themselves and to money. That's it. They don't care. They don't even care about their own children. Like, I don't know how to convince people of this, but like, if you are not, like, if I actually gave a shit about my kids and I was a billionaire and I found out about climate change, I would be like, holy shit, you're telling me that our structure and the society that we've got is actually going to destroy civilization for the future and all this? I got to do something about that, man. I'm worried for my kids. I absolutely got to do something about that. They've done exactly the opposite. They have funded propaganda campaigns to confuse the populace and to convince the populace that climate change doesn't exist. They do not care about their own children. Full stop. They don't care about their own children. They certainly don't care about you. Proud communist hippie here. You survived. Well, it helps that you're here in Canada. It was a bit different here in Canada. We didn't really have the same scale here in Canada. Like, we still criminalized a lot of behavior and did all that kind of stuff, but we certainly didn't attack it with the same kind of zeal, right? Yeah, tape recording of Nixon even saying it. Yeah, like, what's it going to take, right? Like, what's it going to take? I think that the homeless are taking the rhetorical position that the hippies once had. Yeah, just like the normal, like, everybody should have food and shelter. Like, you don't actually live in a society if everyone doesn't have food and shelter, right? One would assume that one of the very first things, that a society would take interest in doing would be to provide food and shelter for the citizenry. That's like point one, right? And if you're not achieving that, then you don't really live in a society. Like, I think that's like, I think it's completely normal. Vince, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Good to see you. Hello! Thoughts on the TTC asking pensioners to return to work because they are going to fire unvaccinated workers? Honestly, the TTC should just keep them. Asking pensioners to return, seriously? I mean, it's just signs of the time, dude. It's just desperation all over the place. It's just desperation all over the place. And like, the one thing that I have walked away from this pandemic with a realization of is that there are extraordinarily stupid people in the society. Like, stupider than I thought. Like, stupider than I thought. And it's actually made it a lot easier to deal with, like, feedback, like negative feedback that I get. Because I can just be like, that guy's probably an anti-masker, right? Like, as soon as you, like, if somebody's walking around being like, just get a job, right? You just be like, probably just an anti-masker, right? Because once you realize that, like, there are people whose opinions you can just dismiss, like, and that there's a lot more of them than you thought there were initially, right? Then it gets a lot easier to live in the world. Because a lot of the negative feedback you get is literally like, oh, that guy's probably just, like, so stupid that he doesn't recognize, like, mask, shot, you're fine, right? And, like, can you imagine working for the TTC, having, like, a strong union job, right? Like, having a reasonable sort of thing, and giving that all up because you're scared of getting a needle. And that's what it is now. Like, that's what it's come down to as far as I'm concerned. Like, these guys are huge babies. Like, they're not standing up for their rights. They're not standing up for their freedoms. All that is just a bullshit cover. These guys are babies who are scared of getting a needle. That's what they are. That's what they are. And I understand. I also have a degree of sympathy because there's been a lot of bamboozling going on and a lot of grifting going on coming out of the United States, especially. Like ivermectin and hydrochloroquine and all this fucking shit. Like, it's all just grifts. It's just grifts upon grifts, right? So there's confusion going on. But, like, we just get a shot, dude. Like, get a shot. Don't be scared of it, right? We've been doing this for a long fucking time. We've been doing this for a long fucking time. Don't give up your fucking union job. Don't give up your TTC job, right? You're really going to regret that. Like, you're really going to regret that decision. That's a really bad decision. Like, I can't imagine a worse trade. It's like the worst trade deal in his. It's like that Trump meme where it's like, it's the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals, so bad. Like, that's what it is. Like, you're literally trading away your security, the job you have, everything you've worked for to get to that position, all of that kind of stuff, because you're literally just scared of a needle. Like, that's what's happening. And it's just like, I'm just like, okay. I spent a decade in Chicago in the 70s. I got to see the guts of the beast. Oh, yeah, dude. Chicago. 70 Chicago, too. Oof. Basic income backer wins ruling party presidency in South Korea. It is a matter of time, Ruth. It is a matter of time before one country finally just gets its act together and does it and shows everybody else that it works, right? Like, it is just a matter of time. And there are places that are doing big studies and big test groups. So, a place like Spain, for example, I believe, is doing a test group that's so big that you might as well just call it a policy. Like, it is just a matter of time that before a country just does it, and then everybody will be like, well, look, they did it and it works, and then you'll see some weird fucking propaganda, dude. You're gonna see some really weird shit start happening once certain countries start doing that. Like, then it's just gonna get odd, like, and creative. It's gonna get really creative. There is no such thing as a strong union in Canada. They've all been co-opted and legislated into utter impotence. Yeah, the way I talk about that is that the unions and like, they're supposed to be like this, but the capitalists have worked it out so it's more like that, right? Like the capitalists have figured out how to take the union movements and sort of just plug it into the system, so that instead of it being this constant like fight up and punch down kind of situation, instead it's just like a click. And it's not always true. Like the Kellogg's factory workers across America went on strike. There are big strike movements that are happening right now, and so that arrangement is happening. But it is far more common that there is like a click happening there. That, like, yeah, the union elects representatives, and then those representatives get bribed by the capitalists, and we just move on, right? I got a ball. I got a pug. I got a ball. You want to go get it, buddy? You want to go get it? Go get it. This is just entitlement, Karen Ken crap, yeah. I think Novavax will help the vaccinations. People are scared for our mRNA vaccines. They're not hardcore anti-vax, at least. I hope once Novavax gets approved, people will take it. I just think it's got to be mandated, dude. Like, I just straight up, like we're past it. Like, we're past it. Like, the whole freedom and rights kind of conversation falls away when it's like a major health crisis, right? Like, if these people were zombies, we wouldn't be talking about it. We'd be shooting zombies, right? Like, we wouldn't be fucking talking about it. Like, my union spent 4 years haggling over a pay increase. At the end, all we could get was 10 cents more an hour. Yeah, exactly. 10 cents. Don't spend it all in one place. Yeah. And in the 4 years that you were negotiating, inflation eradicated the 10 cent benefit. I'm saving that extra 10 cents to have a vacation in Paris. Oh, wow. And if the union does want to fight, Trudeau legislates them to work, like every time, exactly. China developed 2 traditional vaccines, Cuba at least 1, and the U.S. can't get Novavax out to the skeptical public. Well, and again, grinning guys, like this is the reason you do not lie to the public, right? Like, this is why I think one of the most dangerous moments that ever occurred in American history, and there are several, like when the Supreme Court said that money was free speech, and so that people could just donate as much money as they wanted to the democratic system, that was essentially the end of democracy in the United States. Like, it's just over. And similarly, when Rupert Murdoch successfully argued in front of the Supreme Court that it was fine for him to lie, that's why that was an extremely dangerous moment, because you have large, massive scale institutions telling enormous lies constantly. And now you're seeing why that's a bad idea, right? It's the boy who cried wolf. It's the boy who cried wolf, right? Like, just when it's important for everyone to believe the truth, they don't, because you've been lying to them so often, right? And you're seeing how the American free market of ideas system fails, right? Because if you train your society to be this skeptical and this distrustful of everything and not to believe anyone, right? Then then when it really counts that everybody gets on the same page, well, they won't, right? They won't. This pandemic will never end. They complain that it's not ending, but don't get they are the cause. Yeah. Well, yeah, the Cuban vaccine is way more effective than Pfizer and Maduro, but of course, WHO and U.S. can't have that because P&M need to get their $50 billion a year. Yeah. Well, and also, let's be real straight. Like, these capitalists, they're not actually interested in eradicating this thing. Why would they? Right? They want to make a yearly vaccine. That's what they want to do. Why would they ever seek an attempt to eradicate this? They want it to mutate. They want it to evolve. And if it can create an evolution where it sidesteps one of their vaccines, all the better. Because then they can make another one and sell that. Like, the scale of the grift is absurd at this point. Yeah, people don't even realize the amount of lying required just for capitalism to function every day. Well, I mean, like, the fundamental lies, right? The foundational lies. The lies of, like, meritocracy and that hard work will be rewarded. And these sorts of lies are intrinsic, completely necessary. Just work harder, right? Yeah, that's what Ford just gave us, 10 cents more per hour. Who already confirmed the pandemic won't end? Oh, excuse me, guys. Sorry. I promise I don't have the COVID. I promise. Okay, buddy. Do you want to come up? Do you want to come up? No, you just want some pets. You just want some pets. You just want some pets, some licks. That's all you want. You're such a good boy. Do you want to come up? Do you want to come up? Can I pick you up? No, he doesn't want that. My pug is literally sitting here just, like, looking at me, being like, and I'm like, do you want to come up? And he's just like, no, I just want you to play with me. I'm like, okay, well. Yeah, they don't want to eradicate it. Why would they want to stop getting money? 100%. They want more vaccines. Well, and this is it's the same kind of logic that I look at them when they're talking about invading China, right? When they talk about invading China, they're talking about it as if they can, like, just bomb China and then walk away and everything will be fine, right? It's this incredibly short-term thinking, this incredible, like, they don't recognize that they are opening a Pandora's box. They don't realize that, like, once they start that process will never end. And it's the same thing here, that, like, that eventually this virus is going to mutate and become so scary that it will literally be, like, incredibly contractable, contagious. It'll be incredibly contagious, and if you get it, you die, right? Like, that's going to happen. It's terrifying, right? And it's all happening because of this short-term inability to actually recognize what needs to be done in serious ways. Because, again, this isn't a society, this is a business. Capitalists going to capitalize on anything, yeah. Nah, your boss liking you gets ahead. Nothing else matters, exactly. Yes, soft skills help you with the workplace far much better than hard skills. I started my own business, so I don't have to put up with capitalist relationships. That's nice. Having your own business, yeah. If Doug Ford gets back in, we're done. Yeah, Doug Ford getting back in is a major problem. Like, it would be a major problem for sure. We'll see. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting election. I think that the federal election has kind of showed that people are calcified. They don't really know what to do. You know, the populace doesn't really know what to do, and unfortunately, like, there's an unwillingness to do what must be done, like to take to the streets and surround the halls of power. That there are people who are, like, organizing big movements, but they're not. They're doing everything they can to not do what needs to be done, out of a sense of, I don't know, like, impoliteness. I have fairly regular conversations with leaders of organizations who are just like, not actually willing to create protest movements in serious ways. Oh yeah, I love this. This is great. I'm going to read this out. As you can see, this is like a chain of conversation, right? Are you telling me Americans have stores that open up specifically for Halloween and just don't exist any other time of the year? You people are insane. Imagine an empty storefront, some business that closed years ago. The building stands empty, unused for literal months, and then boom! Fall comes around and there's a spirit Halloween. There's no escape. What the fuck? Yeah, this is a thing. Are you serious? Yes, and they are divine gifts of beauty and cheap plastic lawn decorations. I honestly assumed that the existence of Halloween stores was just a running joke in American TV shows. Nope, they're very real. Can confirm this phenomenon also occurs in Canada. It's fun. Oh, it's a blast. Wait, so during non-Halloween they are just empty? Like they don't switch between seasonal decorations like Christmas, Easter? They just close and wait for next year? Yeah, it's not a permanent store. A company will rent an empty building for the 2 to 3 months before Halloween, sell Halloween stuff, then clear everything up and disappear until the following year. And they'll usually set up different buildings from year to year. They just find any good-sized empty store space and will give them a cheap, short-term lease. It's so temporary that even the Halloween stores don't even have a real sign. They just hang up a banner outside. So you're telling me that every year for a month or two, the spirit of Halloween possesses a dead building and then disappears? This is exactly what we're telling you. Real talk on how the hell this works for the non-Americans going, how are there this many empty stores available? The U.S. is full of capitalist ruins. Yes, occasionally Spirit Halloween ends up in a small empty space in the downtown if the stars align just right. But overwhelmingly, they end up in strip malls or freestanding big box stores. You have to drive to them. Nobody lives within walking distance. Freestanding big box stores are built entirely to order and are meant to be replaced semi-frequently. It's cheaper to just build a newer, bigger one at another location while promising the local government so much economic growth that they cut them a deal on the property taxes for X number of years. And the mega chain, meanwhile, knows exactly when that term is up and is already hunting for a new location to start the process anew. It gets worse. These buildings are so shoddily constructed and so purpose-built, they're almost unusable by anyone except the original builder, to the point where some big box retailers have challenged the assessment of the building while it's in use and generating $30 million in profit to have it valued based on resale value as if it was empty and abandoned, and have won. It gets worse. How can it get worse? Many of these properties also have deed restriction on them. That specifies, if sold, they can't be to a competing retailer. So if it was a big box department store, it may specify that it can't be sold to anyone that sells competing merchandise. So basically everything, from lawnmowers to food to clothing. What the hell can you put in there? So the resale value of the building is 0, which when you go to make the assessment, well, I guess no taxes are owed. And these deed restrictions generally last decades. There are good reasons for deed restrictions like that. They're usually used for agricultural land, so it specifies it has to stay agricultural, or for industrial land with contamination issues. You don't want someone to sell a lead smelter to a shell company and then have them sell it to someone to return into residential housing. It's just taken a very, very specific form here. So you have thousands of these abandoned structures all around the U.S. that are just slowly rotting and are unsaleable. They might also be being used to show financial losses, to reduce taxable income more. Spirit sweeps in is like, hey, want to extract a bit more money without in any way disrupting this cycle, and rents the building for 2 months and does not give a damn about what terrible repair it is in. They won't be using it next year. There will be 1,000 newly abandoned stores to inhabit next year. The U.S. is littered with building corpses, and once a year, necromancy brings them back to life to sell us more things. OP here. Holy shit, dude. Don't forget, each one of these rotting corpses of big box stores also comes with a parking lot that takes up enough land to build an entire neighborhood which will sit there doing absolutely nothing for years between a store closing and the eventual day where the land is bought and the building is torn down to build another identically awful one. The pavement stops water from entering the soil, making floods more likely during rainstorms and preventing aquifers from refilling. It also increases the ambient heat of the area and worsens global warming because it absorbs massive amounts of heat from the sun and then radiates it at night. For no reason. No one can use the parking lot because it's private property owned by the real estate company, and they'll tow your car for being on their unused and unusable property. Useful land theft completely ruined for a capitalist shell game. It's a nightmare in every possible way. One big trait that defines psychopathy is risk-taking. So propagandizing the people to play it safe means psychopathy wins every time, yeah? Wait, which stores are these? Yeah, here in North America, if you're not familiar, there is a phenomenon where Spirit Halloween, right, will come in and just inhabit an empty building for a couple of months and sell a bunch of Halloween shit. Halloween stores, yeah. Halloween stores open in the old Toys R Us locations near me, yeah. This is both funny and sad. Oh, okay. And as it goes on, OMG, make it stop. Yet we have nowhere for the homeless to go, Major. Very good. Very good, actually. That's a really, really solid observation there, bud. Yeah, like, we've got these big empty buildings. We can't just, like, convert these even to temporary shelters or anything like that. No, that's not a thing. Okay. Nationalize all land, yeah. The U.S. has a huge problem of underutilization, millions of square feet of industrial retail space near me, but too expensive to do business in. I'd love a couple thousand square, but can't afford 12 square feet per year, yeah. We really need to abolish billionaires. Yeah, trees were cut down for this. Exactly. And yet this is the capitalist this is the capitalist efficiency I keep hearing about. Right? This is the capitalist efficiency I keep hearing about. Right? Nobody ever stopped to ask what are these capitalists efficient at doing? Right? Because once you actually observe what they're efficient at doing, they're efficient at slavery and they're efficient at environmental destruction. Let's government sue them for it. Yeah. I mean, if we cared, we could just occupy these spaces, right? Like, it's just absurdisms layered upon absurdisms at this point. Like, I don't see how any of this is defensible. I genuinely don't. Like, that any time anybody wanders into this chat, right? Like, their defenses come from a deep, deep place of ignorance. Like, you literally are just informing them of what's actually happening. So it's not even a defense, right? It's just like, and when you actually get people who are like defenders of this system and you actually listen to them, they sound like nightmare psychopaths. Like, literally just let people die, enslave people. Like, that's totally fine. If those people don't want to be enslaved, then they can go find another slave, like slaver. Like, what the fuck? Like, Jesus Christ. And this the system of neoliberal capital has become indefensible. Like, as indefensible as like the Nazis, in my view. That, like, it's as destructive, it's as harrowing. I mean, and in many cases it's worse. I mean, the Nazis didn't try to eliminate all human life, right? Like, the Nazis weren't trying to destroy humanity. Oh yeah, we were talking about incarceration before, right? U.S. nationwide incarceration. So beginning in about the 70s, right? 73, right up. Federal prisons, it starts to increase in about the mid-90s, right? But state prisons, right through the neoliberal period, right? Oh yeah, neoliberal, it's totally working. Maybe the homeless should pay them $10 for a parking spot. Yeah, right. Like, geez Louise, man. Like, it's just getting, like, this place is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to live in North America. Like, it's embarrassing. And like, the people are cringy. The whole culture that exists here is just embarrassing. Where our legacy is just total destruction. Last CRB today, yeah. Oh yeah, the homelessness spike and the mass evictions that are coming are going to be really brutal, Matthias. Like, that's going to be really hard to watch, and we know it's going to happen that way because we saw it happen in the United States, right? That, like, we're actively facing a full scale destruction of our economy and our society, right? And like, we could very easily not. Like, we could very easily just continue it. We could very easily keep it going. The only saving grace on it is that the NDP are walking around saying that they will withhold their vote, right? And there are many people who are hoping that interprets into the Liberals having to extend, right? That if the Liberals try to not extend, that the NDP will just withhold their vote. Both Ontario and federal legislature return next Monday the 18th. My reps are going to get some angry emails from me regarding big box stores. Yeah, they don't care, dude. Like, that's the thing. They don't care. Like, they know who their owners are. Oh yeah, the CRB needs to be extended. Like, it absolutely needs to be extended. Like, we see what happens. Like, we know what happens. And the idea that like the consequences of it, I actually think I have something open on this. Hold on. Oh yeah. From the Gravel Institute, they ripped away unemployment insurance to force people back to work, but job growth is still dismal, and now millions of people are suffering. Right? Like, that's the situation. That's the situation we're finding ourselves in. And it follows a very basic principle, right? These jobs don't pay a living wage, right? And many of them, like, if they're paying you for like base subsistence, right? You're paid like enough so that you can have rent and food, and that's it. And so many people, especially through this pandemic period, are beginning to see like, well, if I work for you and then just end up poor, I might as well just be poor, right? I might as well just have my time, and at least I've got my days, and I don't need to subserviate myself to this absurd system of stupidity. I get my time back, and I am what I am. So many more will be outside and won't be shopping. There won't be enough workers and maybe not enough product to sell. Yeah. Well, and the inevitable result of all of this, like, if the capitalists keep this up, the result of this will be a failed Christmas, right? Because people won't have enough money to actually buy the goods in the first place. And you'll also not be able to get enough workers to accommodate the people who want to buy, right? That's an inevitability. Like, it's not going to happen this year, likely. But the way the capitalist system it works, it will eventually happen that these businesses are not able to sell goods because nobody has any money. And they're not going to be able to find workers because they're not paying high enough wages, right? So the whole thing shuts down. And as I say over and over and over again on this channel, if capitalism misses one Christmas, if capitalism doesn't make money over one Christmas, that is the end of it fully. That is the shambling zombie corpse falling over and laying to rest and no longer standing up again. Like, they cannot miss Christmas. They can't. Like, they can't. Because if they do, like, the whole structure falls apart. And it is going to happen. It's going to happen soon, too. Like, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but someday, baby. Someday. There's a little Casablanca moment for you. I feel so sad. Stop exploiting our labor and ending our benefits. We need a $1,000 UBI period. Increase ODSP to $3,500 a month, for sure. Well, and it becomes more and more grotesque, Vince, the more you recognize and realize, like, money isn't real, right? It's not real. That what we are doing is just making people suffer for nothing, right? That we have enough housing, we have enough food, we have enough stuff, that what we need to be doing now is just ensuring that everyone has access to it and integrating people into the economy. And we're just choosing not to do it. We're just making the decision not to do it at this point. Like, it's straight up a choice, which I think I actually have something along those lines as well. This is from the Millennial Snowflake. In the so-called developed world, industrialization has progressed to such an extent that the existence of poverty is a calculated choice made by the ruling class. We have enough to care for the poor, just not enough to satisfy the rich. Like, that's what's happening to us. That's what's happening to us. And it's going to get dumber. Like, it's going to get a lot stupider as these liberals and as these conservatives keep being given power by the people they're exploiting. Like, we need to abandon these guys. Like, it needs to be a full-scale abandonment. Like, I'm talking 0%. And we need to start talking about these guys as if they're as bad as the Nazis were. Like, they are. Like, they're funding arms sales and genocides, and like they're impoverishing people. Like, what's it going to take? Like, what's it going to take? Is it literally going to take like a full-scale, like, internal genocide? Is that what we need to see? Do we need to see like a section of Toronto turned into a ghetto and then committed to a genocide? Is that actually what it's going to have to take before we actually start like recognizing that like we could resolve all of this? And it wouldn't actually be that difficult. Like, that's the thing that's so funny about it. Like, it wouldn't actually be that difficult. But the people who are in charge are psychopaths, right? So they're not going to work with us. Let me guess what the nature of those 200K jobs were. Minimum wage, low-hour gig jobs? Yeah, right. Gravel has it right. 8 million people kicked off employment. Less than 200K jobs created. Absurd. Yeah, exactly. And, like... And it's for very simple reasons, right? Rent is here and wages are here, right? Like, you can't live in the neighborhood where the job is because the job won't pay the rent. So what do? Right? You literally can't rent out a space. And it's also getting to be grotesque now with the way that the home ownership system works, right? The privatization market of the housing market. So you have people like buying up houses, right, and then turning around and renting them. And who is actually paying for the property, right? It's the renter, right? So it's a system of exploitation the entire way. That the worthless middleman that's jammed himself between the renter and the bank is the person who owns the property. So it's a grotesqueness upon a grotesqueness. It's just absurd. Like, as a renter, I can't afford to, the bank won't let me pay, like, the bank $500 a month in a mortgage, but I can afford to pay $1,000 a month to rent, right? Like, it's that kind of grotesque nonsense that it's obviously being done structurally at this point. Like, the banks are owned by the billionaires, and the billionaires want the structure to benefit them, period. They're not interested in helping anybody. I'm starting to doubt the millions of job openings narrative. My daughter has been turned down by 4 big box stores for seasonal help. Yeah, because for retail, you're hitting on something here, Grinning, right? If you can get the place to work with a skeleton crew, right, and just lay everybody else off under the guise that it's the pandemic and all of that kind of stuff, then you can hyper exhaust this crew, right, and then replace them. This is the Amazon model. This. You can see the documents. Jeff Bezos says it. His goal is to have as small amount of people as possible and exhaust them, right? Just exhaust them and replace them as they get exhausted, right? But it's a retail store, right? And so it needs to maintain a positive look in the populace. The populace needs to look at these places and think that they're doing something good. And if you tell the populace, oh yeah, we're exploiting the labor market, keeping jobs low, and then exhausting our workers, well, that doesn't look so good. So what do? You create a false narrative that, oh, people don't want to work, and unemployment benefits and all this kind of stuff, shifting the blame onto the worker again, as they do, right? And so as they are running this policy of hyper-exploitation, and it is a policy of hyper-exploitation, you simultaneously attempt to create a sympathetic narrative in the populace so that the populace will keep shopping at your establishment. It's the kind of thing a demon would do, right? Because these guys are demonic. So when you go shop for like Walmart or Target or any of these big box stores or any of these kinds of places, that's what they're doing. It's yet another grift, right? No shopping for Xmas and End Capitalism 2021. Yeah, I mean, I don't celebrate Christmas. I haven't celebrated Christmas for over a decade now, right? Like, I don't celebrate Christmas because I've never considered it to be a holiday. Certainly not a Christian holiday, right? I don't know who considers this to be a holiday anymore. Like, and the more you observe it and the more you recognize what it is that you're actually doing over Christmas, the sadder it gets, right? What you are doing on Christmas is you are attempting to replace the time that you've lost to capitalism with your family and friends with an object. That's what you're doing. That instead of taking the time and spending it with your loved ones and just living life with your loved ones, right? Instead of that, you're going to take that lost time that has manifested itself in this currency that is worthless. It's nothing, right? But you're taking that and you're trading it for an object that you then give them, and that's supposed to have replaced your love. That's what Christmas is. And I cannot participate in that. Like, I refuse to buy anybody a gift. I refuse to accept gifts. I refuse any of that kind of stuff. I will not have my love for my friends and my family replaced with an object. Not interested. And have you ever received a gift from someone and you know that, like, that's exactly what they're trying to do? It's a buy-off, right? It's a buy-off. Like, no. It's a capital strike, driving wages down more, using extended unemployment and impoverishment. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what Thatcher did, right? Starve them out. Starve them out. Who cares if they die, right? There's too many of these people anyway, right? There's like a Malthusian fascism to it too, right? Overpopulation, all that kind of stuff, right? So just kill them off, right? Wouldn't be surprised if they implement Squid Games before UBI. I mean, like, what is like the Dragon's Den, right? What's Shark Tank, right? These sort of Hunger Games-esque sort of reality TV shows where you go and plead your case before the wealthy to have them buy your stupid dumb shit. And it's always stupid dumb shit. Like, it's never like something that's actually meaningful or useful, right? And if it is something meaningful or useful, it usually just is an opportunity for these fucking sociopaths to reveal how sociopathic they are, right? There's great compilations of Kevin O'Leary just really revealing how deeply sociopathic he is, right? On what, Dragon's Den or whatever it is he was? Like, this guy who literally made his wealth by conning Mattel, I believe. Like, literally ran a grift on these guys, conned them out of a bunch of money, and now he's supposed to be considered like Mr. Wonderful, like all this kind of stuff. Like, I've never seen someone be more openly arrogant and narcissistic before, and have a society reward them for it. Like, this is a guy who literally said that the impoverishment of poor people was good. Like, yikes. And we let this person on national television. Like, we let this person run in the Conservative Party. He placed third when he ran. Like, that's how deeply corrupted we are. Wouldn't be surprised. Well, Squid Games is becoming like, and also I want to talk about Squid Games, right? Squid Game has become like must-watch television in my view. It really is must-watch television. Like, there's so much that's said in that show. It really captures like the desperation of people, the greed traps that people can fall into, and also what happens when you become wealthy, right? Like, the moral of the piece is very clearly that wealth makes people psychotic, and also on top of that the people who do this kind of stuff will never be punished for it. That the punishment that we can enact on these types of sociopaths are just to dismantle their illegitimate institutions. That's the only vengeance we will have, or the only justice we will have, if you prefer. And it's but for sure, like, if you are thinking about watching Squid Game, or if you've never heard of Squid Game or anything like this, I'm going to push you in the direction and say, yeah, watch that. It really is like must watch. Is there an English version of Squid? So Squid Game is it is a Korean show, but on Netflix it's completely like subtitled but also dubbed, and the dub is good. I don't either, but it's an excuse to eat good food and spend time with family. That's true, Ruth. Take the time you can get. I bet there are real life Squid Games going on right now. Yeah, of course there are, dude. Like, for God's sakes, like, Jeffrey Epstein had a pedophile rape island. Yeah, obviously there's like Squid Games going on. That'd probably be easier to do, right? Like, it'd be way easier to cover something like that. Like, to just like hunt people, or like have people compete in games where they die. Yeah, I almost guarantee that's been going on for decades, right? Like, how could it not? And like, given how little they're willing to actually report on a literal pedophile like rape island, right? Like, really think about that, guys. Like, think about how our media is absolutely refusing to report on a literal pedophile rape island. Like, where we know, for a fact, that billionaires and high-level politicians went to the island. Like, those are just facts. Like, we know, right? And it isn't like weekly reported. It isn't talked about on the regular. There's no expose. There's literally nobody whose job it is to investigate this. There's no institution that's pursuing it. There's nothing going on with it, right? Nothing is happening. So yeah, if they're not reporting on that, they're certainly not going to report on like, yeah, we kidnapped a bunch of people and put them into like a fucking game of murder, right? Like, yeah, they don't give a fuck. They don't care. Bet there's a version of Squid Game going on in Libya. Yeah, that'd be the place where it would happen. The Libyan story is so fucking heartbreaking, dude. The Libyan story is so fucking heartbreaking to me. Like, because Libya had a good thing going, man. Libya was going good. You know? Like, you could critique it all you want, fine. But, like, there weren't, like, open-air slave markets and shit. Like, that wasn't happening. Ugh. Just fucking gross, man. What a gross society we live in. Yeah, if the point of having a society isn't to care for each other, to ease suffering and realize each other's potential, literally what is the point? To hoard wealth? To build empires on other people's throats? Life is brief, nothing lasts, wealth and empires are pointless violence. Right? Like, it's becoming more and more obvious to everybody. And more people are able to articulate it. Oh, this is great. This comes from somebody named Cat Cosgrove. Yeah, I worked 90 hours a week, destroyed my marriage, and didn't watch my kids grow up, but hey, we shipped an important product. Oh, at least you're rich now. Oh, no. But I have the satisfaction of having made other people rich. Completely deranged. That's what this last thing says down here. Oh yeah, Nutrimilk Hotel. We may have legal slavery, legal bribery, offshore wealth hoarding, and perv islands, but at least we have democracy. Yeah, right. No, and again, dude, like, America doesn't have democracy. Like, I didn't really want to get into it when I was talking with Mystic earlier, because that poor boy is still working through a lot of stuff. And God bless him for even coming in here and talking to me. That's wonderful. But like, there's no democracy in America. That is a fake thing. Like maybe on like the municipal level, and like maybe on the state level, maybe. But like the federal level, there's no democracy. It's just the edifice. It's just the illusion. It's like a photograph of democracy. And like that was made obvious with the Bernie Sanders Hillary Clinton election in the Democratic Party, right? It was completely obvious. Like Bernie Sanders won that election. Like he won. And he didn't become the leader of the Democratic Party. And the existence of superdelegates in the system is it. Like the superdelegate system basically ensures that it is not a democracy, and it just exists in order to diffuse the energy of the people. That instead of funneling energy into protest movements and into the streets, which is where it should go, it keeps funneling itself into the Democratic Party, which is why the Democratic Party gets known as the graveyard of protests. Right? It's just a graveyard where like the civil rights movement gets diffused into it. Malcolm X called them out on this, right? Malcolm X was an important figure in calling out how this happened. That like, he has this great lecture that he gave called the Bullet or the Ballot, and in it he makes fun of his own people because they went down to Washington on a bus and they did a march. And he's like, yeah, and you marched over here, and then you marched over there, and you marched over here, and then you marched on the bus. And nothing happened, did it? Right? And that's more or less my opinion of what's happening with like the climate change movement. Right? Big protests, march down the streets, rah, 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 and then nothing fucking happened. So like, we've got to surround the halls of power. We've got to surround the halls of power. There isn't another option. It doesn't exist. Like, and the people who think there's another way are fooling themselves. Right? They're just fooling themselves. Canada is following them without using Alexa for a map. Ugh, yeah. Ugh. I mean, the fact that the Oxus organization occurred and Canada wasn't part of it, I actually think is a bigger deal than people are making out. Like, the fact that Oxus thing happened at all, right? That arrangement between Australia, the UK, and the Americans in order to build nuclear submarines in the South China Sea. Well, why wasn't Germany involved in that? Why weren't the NATO partners involved in that? Right? In the US, you can vote for the Dem-appointed candidate or the Republican-appointed candidate. The candidates are appointed by insiders and lobbyists, but you can vote. Exactly. Democracy is when obnoxious patriot chants. USA, 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 USA. Yeah. I keep thinking about writing a script. As you can tell, my artistic proclivity it sways all over the place, right? I go through music, and then every so often I want to write like short stories, and then every so often I want to write a script. And there's a script that's been banging around in my head for a long time. And I would call it I'm Erica, right? And the protagonist, but the main centerpiece of it would be a young lady by the name of Erica. And I would make it very, very obvious that Erica is an analogy or the personification of America, right? And it would become obvious because she would always be wearing red, white, and blue, and she would have like a very Britney Spears kind of way about her. And then she would do like absolutely horrible shit. like totally horrible shit to her neighbors all of the fucking time, and she would do this shit, and then she would go like, I'm Erica, 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 right? She would always be doing that kind of shit. And she would have a friend called Candace, who would be Canada, right? And at one point, one of the other like nation people, like Francis or something, would ask her, why do you hang out with Erica? She does all this horrible stuff. She beats people up and all this kind of stuff. Why do you support her? And Candace will say, well, if she's hitting you, she's not hitting me. Because I think that's the Canadian position on America. Juice Media take on the treaty is interesting. Oh, yeah, okay. I mean, we're in the dwindling minutes here, so I won't take a look. Also, I worry that I wouldn't be able to show it. I agree, once we start getting ignored by other countries, we're in trouble. Maybe Trudeau, I'd be becoming Trump to the world. I mean, the rest of the world does not want to do business with America. Like, America is unstable. Like, and like, if you're a real governor, like if you're somebody who is in power for a long period of time, right? Unlike in the United States where people stick around for very short periods of time. But like, if you have a longer view of what it is to be a governor, like if you're someone like Putin, who's been in power for like 20 years, right? Xi Jinping, right? Like these guys think in dynastic viewpoints, right? And Europeans also have a longer view than the Americans, and are also more intrinsically aware of what can happen if your society starts to fuck up. And they're looking at America and they're being like, yeah, I don't see any reason to do business with these guys. Like, they're unstable. And they're taking when Biden got in, he said, America's back. And the response from the whole rest of the world was, yeah, for how long? Right? Oh, man, I'm hungry. I'm going to go get myself some food. Okay, guys, this is the end of the stream. Just remember, each and every one of you is a divine being standing in divine energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to convince you something else is going on. I also got to start adding at the end of this thing. Please be sure to like and share and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family. If you've got $1, my Patreon down below, guys. Thanks so much. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Good luck. We're going to need it.